The White Tiger's Gift. Thunder God's Bulwark. 1. When the white tiger died, its body fell like a small mountain, causing the surrounding ground to tremble and creating an ear-splitting sound. The system announcements that Ling Chen heard confirmed that the white tiger was well and truly dead. Ling Chen had never thought that a legendary god-grade beast would die at his hands. Although this had taken him a few hours, he was definitely the first person to kill a white tiger in the Forgotten Continent. The glorious demon beast clan will never perish, arg. The instant the white tiger's body fell, the tyrant demon beast also gave a final cry and disappeared. Just as the white tiger had said, when it died, the tyrant demon beast would also die. Ling Chen had essentially killed two mysterious god-grade beings by killing the white tiger. Finally, the ground trembled from the white tiger falling, and Ling Chen took 2 steps backwards as he let out a long breath. His body had been incredibly tense this entire time. In the end, although he had the ability to insta-kill low-level celestial-grade bosses, it took him around 3 hours to kill the white tiger, which only had 20% of its HP remaining. If the white tiger had been at full health, it would have taken him more than 15 hours. It definitely wouldn't have been able to last that long. Although the white tiger had died, there were not any spoils of war near its body. Although Ling Chen felt a bit disappointed, he didn't find this surprising. After all, the white tiger was a holy guardian beast, not some final boss for players to kill. Not punishing him for killing such a being was already good enough, let alone giving him rewards. However, that 200,000 SP was better than any spoils of war. The white tiger had died, just like that. Back when he had seen the words "White Tiger's Heart" from Suer, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. This was because he needed to retrieve the white tiger's heart, which meant that he needed to kill the white tiger. However, to anyone, thinking of killing the white tiger would simply be a joke. Even if he was 100 times more powerful, he wouldn't be able to fight with the white tiger at all. And yet less than a week after seeing that message, the white tiger had died right in front of him. In fact, he didn't have to put in much effort or even take many risks, and it had even asked him to kill it. If this was luck, then his luck would simply be too heaven-defying. Well done, young human. Just as Ling Chen felt that he could relax, a voice sounded in his ears. Ling Chen hesitantly asked, "White tiger." "Ha ha." The white tiger's voice was quite weak, but was still quite calm. "Don't be afraid, I'm already dead. You have successfully helped me defeat 2 powerful demon beasts, and have given me release. What you are hearing is the last wisp of my soul talking to you. In just a while, this final bit of consciousness will also disappear. Is there something important you want me to do? As long as I can do it, I will do my best to achieve it," Ling Chen said. Although it was the white tiger's request, but he had indeed been the one to kill the white tiger. Moreover, the main reason he had killed the white tiger was for himself, so his words were filled with both respect as well as guilt. As such, if the white tiger had any final requests, he would do his best to fulfill them. "No," the white tiger replied in the negative. "I held on because I wanted to personally see the new Holy Qilin. We, the 4 guardian beasts, thought that the Holy Qilin's bloodline had perished a long time ago. We searched for any descendants, but even after thousands of years, we weren't able to find anything, causing us to despair. However, feeling the Holy Qilin's aura was the most joyous thing I have experienced in 10,000 years. As such, even if I'm about to perish, I'm still delirious with joy." Young human, for you to possess the Holy Qilin's protection, there's only explanation that you have made a soul contract with the Holy Qilin and have become the Holy Qilin's master. The Holy Qilin was the most powerful of the Forgotten Continent's 5 Saint Destroyer beasts, and no one has the right to be its master. However, this is what has happened in reality. I wonder if the Holy Qilin's master could allow me to see the new Holy Qilin in my final moments. Holy Qilin! Holy Qilin! Ling Chen was quite familiar with this name. Who wouldn't know the most powerful of the Forgotten Continent's 5 Saint Destroyer beasts? However, he never thought this name would have anything to do with him. The white tiger was evidently referring to Xiao Hui. However, Xiao Hui, who he had watched hatch from an egg and looked like a small dog, could he really be the Holy Qilin? Ling Chen didn't say anything and summoned Xiao Hui. As soon as Xiao Hui appeared, he happily jumped and ran around Ling Chen. After noticing the white tiger's gigantic corpse, it came over and vigorously sniffed it. "White tiger, are you referring to him?" Ling Chen asked. The white tiger did not reply, but Ling Chen could feel profound wisps of the white tiger's soul entering his mind. After a while, he once again heard the white tiger's voice, which was now incredibly excited. "That's right, that's right. Although it's only half, but it's indeed the Holy Qilin's bloodline. That's right. This is great. We should have known that the mighty Holy Qilin's bloodline would never perish." Ling Chen was speechless and looked at Xiao Hui, who was wagging his short tail as he sniffed the white tiger's body. Waves of shock rolled through his heart. Xiao Hui was actually the Holy Qilin's descendant. The Holy Qilin's descendant. Holy crap! So Xiao Hui, who had been following him all this time, was the only descendant of the Holy Qilin. However, if Xiao Hui really was the Holy Qilin, the system should have called him the Holy Qilin, as opposed to the Holy Spirit Beast. Half? Hearing the white tiger's words, Ling Chen asked in confusion. "That's right, only half." The white tiger replied, "Young human, although I don't know how you became the Holy Qilin's master, but the Holy Qilin is naturally able to distinguish between good and evil. For it to be willing to follow you, that means you're not an evil person. Everything is arranged by fate, and I don't have the right or power to interfere with anything. Do you know what this new Holy Qilin's main strength is?" The white tiger asked. "Support?" Ling Chen replied without even thinking about it. Xiao Hui had been following him since he had been born, and he was confident that he understood it fully. "Not at all. It's auspiciousness," the white tiger explained. "Auspiciousness?" Ling Chen was stunned. "That's right. Before, I said that it only inherited half of the Holy Qilin's bloodline because all of the Holy Qilin's attack power is completely gone. However, its holy aura remains. Moreover, its auspiciousness and luck has increased by more than 5-fold, possibly even more. Indeed, the Holy Qilin loved peace and hated strife and conflict. In order to stop its descendants from being dragged into battles, when it passed on its bloodline, it must have removed all attack properties. However, it retained all of its holiness and auspiciousness, so that its descendants would be able to bring others luck. However, it's quite unbelievable. Although it's so young, its auspiciousness has already surpassed that of the mature Holy Qilin's. This is simply incomprehensible. Could it be that its mother's auspiciousness was even greater than the Holy Qilin's? The white tiger said in shock. "Young human, it's undeniable that the Holy Qilin possesses powerful support abilities. You gave that answer before because this was something you witnessed. However, its greatest power is something that cannot be seen, its power of auspiciousness. Think about it, after it started following you, did your luck tremendously increase?" Ling Chen didn't need to think about this. Ever since a long time ago, he had begun suspecting his ridiculous luck in the virtual world. The War God's Trial Grounds, Lonely Spirit Ridge, Forest of Bones, Moon God Ruins, Fairy Realm, Lunar Sky Hell, meeting Xiao Fengchen, Lava Purgatory, the Dwarf Realm, the East Ocean Continent, Godchild Peak, meeting the White Tiger. In all of those places or situations, inexplicable things had happened as a result of incredible luck. One time was luck, but if it happened again and again, was it still purely luck? He had met the lucky cat again and again, as well as Jian Gun again and again. He had found 8 of the Lunar Scourge's God Orbs within 8 months. Ling Chen wondered if he was someone who was loved by fate. He had wondered if the now extinct beast of luck mentioned by Qi Yu was related to Xiao Hui, and today he had received a definite answer. That luck had appeared time and time again, and there was definitely an explanation. It turned out the source of this luck was Xiao Hui, who had stayed by his side and had blessed him with auspiciousness. It seems like you understand. The White Tiger's remnant soul could detect the changes in Ling Chen's emotions, and its voice grew weaker. It wouldn't be able to hang on for long. With it by your side, good luck will always follow you, unless you abandon it. Of course, I believe that that's impossible, as becoming its companion is the greatest luck of your life. As such, enjoy this auspiciousness, but don't rely on it. After all, auspiciousness is just auspiciousness. It will give you more opportunities to do the things you want to do, but in the end, you'll need to rely on your own strength and determination. Auspiciousness will only follow those who put in their effort and determination. No one can achieve success merely relying on luck. Ling Chen nodded. I understand. I'm satisfied that I was able to see the new Holy Qilin before departing. There's one last thing I want to ask you. This is quite a serious matter, so you can choose to refuse. The White Tiger spoke in a serious tone, and Ling Chen could more or less guess what it was. What is it? The White Tiger's voice once again sounded out. The Tyrant Demon Beast and Ice Demon Beast mentioned that the Lunar Scourge that was supposed to have been destroyed 10,000 years ago is on you. Is this true? Just as Ling Chen had expected, the White Tiger had asked about the Lunar Scourge. When Ling Chen had first arrived, the Ice Demon Beast had roared out about the Lunar Scourge, and it was impossible for the White Tiger not to have heard. Moreover, the White Tiger had existed since the ancient ages, so how could it not have heard of the Lunar Scourge before? Ling Chen didn't want to lie to the White Tiger, so he nodded. That's right, I possess the Lunar Scourge. The White Tiger fell silent for a while before slowly speaking. It seems that legend was true. As long as the true moon exists, the Lunar Scourge will not be destroyed. Back then, the Moon God clan probably knew about this legend, so they used a special method to separate the Lunar Scourge's 15 orbs, making them lose their power. So, young human, how many orbs have you collected? 8 of them, Ling Chen truthfully replied. Without even realizing it, he had collected more than half of the Lunar Scourge's orbs. 8, is it? Very good. Finding even one of those orbs is incredibly difficult. It seems that you haven't obtained the Lunar Scourge for very long, and yet you've already found 8 orbs. Evidently, this is related to the auspiciousness brought by the Holy Qilin. However, the main reason was your own efforts. You seem to have an obsession regarding obtaining these orbs, right? The White Tiger asked. That's right. Ling Chen nodded. In that case, can you tell me why you wish to obtain the orbs? Ling Chen thought for a while before replying. In order to save someone who is more important to me than even my own life. I also want to become stronger to protect the people who I want to protect. After a short pause, the White Tiger once again spoke. You haven't lied. You desire power, but that desire can't even compare to your desire to save that person. The person who the Holy Qilin has chosen cannot be an evil or greedy person. Very well. What I heard was that anyone who has the Lunar Scourge will become the Lunar Scourge's puppet and will be controlled by the Lunar Scourge. However, you seem quite calm, and your soul is pure, which indicates that you're not being controlled. In that case, are you instead in control of the Lunar Scourge? Although it sounds impossible, but in this world, nothing is impossible. The Shura's remnant soul had told Ling Chen about this. Before, the Lunar Scourge possessed other beings, but now it was controlled by Ling Chen. After being overpowered by Ling Chen's powerful mental energy, Ling Chen was now the one in control. Of course, one of the reasons for this was that back then, without any orbs, the lunar scourge had been quite weak. However, even if the lunar scourge was now restored to its original state, it wouldn't be able to escape from Ling Chen's control. It was now fully owned by Ling Chen, and would not interfere with him. When I first came into contact with the lunar scourge, it didn't have a single orb, and was quite weak. As such, when it tried to take over my mind, it was instead defeated by my mental energy. Ling Chen replied. So it was like that. The white tiger sighed. This is a massive blessing to you. Did you know you're the first person in the Mystic Moon's history to be able to subdue the lunar scourge? Even the moon god who created the lunar scourge was unable to do so, and was destroyed by the lunar scourge's power. As such, I can rest at ease. After all, the lunar scourge is the most powerful, but also most evil, item in all of the Mystic Moon world. The lunar scourge's power and evil caused even the mighty moon god clan to fear it. However, in reality, nothing is truly good or evil. What decides is a person's heart. If an evil power is used by a holy person, it will instead become a holy power. If a holy power falls into an evil person's hand, it would become a catastrophe. You're not an evil person, and the lunar scourge has been completely suppressed by you, so in your hands it is no longer an item of utmost evil. Whether it's an item of good or evil depends on your heart. At the very least, it seems that the lunar scourge's power will not bring disaster to the continents. Rather, if the continents face catastrophe, you will be able to save them. Ling Chen replied. I can't promise anything else, but at the very least, in my hands, the lunar scourge won't cause a catastrophe in my hands. Please rest assured. Very good. The white tiger sounded quite pleased. Well, you traveled all this way to kill me, right? The white tiger did not beat around the bush, and spoke with great certainty. Ling Chen's heart rapidly thumped for a moment, before calming down as he nodded. To be completely honest, I came here to kill you. The white tiger's soul was directly talking to Ling Chen's soul, so it was impossible for Ling Chen to lie. After all, if he lied, the white tiger would be able to tell from his soul. Ha ha, you don't need to feel uneasy. When the ice demon beast called out lunar scourge, I already guessed it. The white tiger spoke in a gentle tone. 10,000 years ago, one of the lunar scourge's orbs fell here. At that time, the entire forgotten continent was overshadowed by the terror of the lunar scourge, including me. After recognizing the orb, in order not to allow it to return to the lunar scourge, I swallowed it, and it has remained within me to today. You must have used some mysterious method to find out the orb's location. You're completely right. Ling Chen breathed in and heavily nodded. Although I knew that it would be impossible for me to kill you, and as a guardian beast, I shouldn't kill you, but that reason made it so that I had to come. If you were an evil person, or if you were being controlled by the lunar scourge, I wouldn't allow this orb to return to the lunar scourge under any circumstances. However, neither of those two situations is the case, so there's no reason for the orb within me not to rejoin the lunar scourge. Because you are the Holy Qilin's master, and it is still quite young, you can only protect it if you are strong enough. After it matures, even if we four guardian beasts all perish, our bloodlines can still be restored by the Holy Qilin's holy power. That orb is inside my corpse. With the Holy Qilin's help, it will be incredibly easy for you to retrieve it. The white tiger's voice was still quite clear, but it was evidently becoming weaker. It seems that my time is nearly up. Finally, I have something that I want to give you, the reward that I promised you. What? Ling Chen looked up in surprise. A gift from the most powerful guardian beast definitely wouldn't be anything insignificant. The lunar scourge is cursed by the heavens. When it is fully restored, it will invoke divine tribulation lightning. Although the divine tribulation lightning cannot destroy the lunar scourge, it will reveal the matter of the lunar scourge being restored. If the lunar scourge was controlling you, it would be the one to bear the divine tribulation lightning, and the fully restored lunar scourge would be able to do so. However, because you are the lunar scourge's master, you will be the one to suffer the divine tribulation lightning. A human's body is simply unable to withstand such a thing. Moreover, after the divine tribulation lightning passes, the Moon God clan will arrive. The Moon God clan definitely will not allow the existence of the lunar scourge, so they will also destroy you. As a guardian beast, I cannot oppose the Moon God clan's will, nor should I. However, you are the Holy Qilin's master. If you die, the Holy Qilin's final descendant will also perish. As such, I cannot simply let you die. You're going to give me power? Ling Chen asked in confusion. No, it's a type of protection. An ultimate protection that white tigers can only give once in their lifetime, the Thunder God's Bulwark. The white tiger said gravely. It never thought that this protection would be given to a human. Thunder God's Bulwark. I don't have much time left. Please close your eyes, and don't move or resist. There won't be any pain, nor will it take too much time. When it's over, you'll naturally understand why it's called Thunder God's Bulwark. Hearing the white tiger's words, Ling Chen did not speak and closed his eyes and relaxed his body. Because of Xiao Hui, he trusted that the white tiger would not harm him. He silently waited to see what sort of miraculous thing this Thunder God's Bulwark was. But lightning began to buzz around him, and the white tiger's corpse suddenly flashed with a purple light. The purple light grew at a shocking rate until it became more than 100 meters long and flooded into Ling Chen's body. A massive wave of pain filled Ling Chen's body and threatened to devour his consciousness, causing Ling Chen to almost curse out loud. Didn't the white tiger say there would be no pain? What the hell was this? However, this only lasted for a split second. In the next moment, the pain suddenly disappeared and was replaced by a warm and numb, but comfortable feeling. This feeling of comfort gradually increased, making Ling Chen feel as if he was bathing in a hot spring, and there were more than 10 beauties using their hands to massage his body. He completely forgot about his indignance regarding the pain, and closed his eyes, almost moaning in pleasure. He felt as if there was something warm wrapped around his body, and there were waves of warmth spreading throughout his body. Ling Chen guessed that it was lightning. However, lightning was the most berserk element, and had the greatest attack power. How could lightning make someone feel so comfortable? Countless bolts of lightning flowed through his body, and after cycling through his body, they swarmed towards his dantian. Slowly, he could feel the space there being opened up by the lightning, creating a mysterious space. Ding! You have received the white tiger's blessing, and have received the special skill, Thunder God's Bulwark. When the system announcement sounded out, the strange feeling in his body disappeared. Ling Chen opened his eyes and looked at the dancing and buzzing purple lightning around his body. Very soon, the lightning disappeared, and his surroundings became silent again. Thunder God's Bulwark, an ultimate blessing granted by the guardian beast White Tiger's soul's power. The White Tiger can only give this power once, and will cause its soul to take great damage. After receiving this blessing, the target will receive the Thunder God's protection. Effect: absorbs any type of thunder element damage. Can absorb thunder element damage and convert it into HP or MP, or can store it within one's body to release at will, causing massive lightning damage. Ling Chen. The Shura Emperor of the Legends, the Thunder God's Bulwark. A protective skill that could completely absorb lightning damage. Ling Chen never thought that the White Tiger would have given him a skill that could completely negate, as well as absorb, lightning damage. Ling Chen was completely dumbfounded. He knew that anything from the White Tiger would be quite impressive, but he never thought it would be such a powerful and heaven-defying skill. With the protection from the Thunder God's Bulwark, not only would Ling Chen never be damaged by lightning attacks, but they would instead be beneficial for him. In other words, apart from the ability to absorb water attacks from the Aquarius Orb, Ling Chen now had this same effect for lightning attacks. This skill also allowed him to store up lightning then release it at will. However, this was not the most important point. This skill was more so important for the divine lightning tribulation. In the Forgotten Continent, the wrath of the heavens was mainly manifested through divine lightning tribulation. And now, even the wrath of the heavens could not affect him. So it was the thunder god's bulwark of the legends. Xiao spoke incredibly softly, but her voice was full of awe and incredulity. She was much more familiar with the thunder god's bulwark than Ling Chen. Only mature white tigers could give this blessing, and they could only give it once in their lives. After giving it away, their power would fall by half a grade for the next 100 years. As such, unless it was to someone incredibly important to them, someone who needed the skill urgently, the white tiger wouldn't be willing to sacrifice so much of its power. Moreover, the white tiger was an incredibly resolute creature, so it was impossible to force it to give this blessing. Back then, when the Scarlet Flame Sword Emperor became a Shura, he had desired the white tiger's thunder god's bulwark. However, that was just a desire, and could not become reality. Afterwards, when he became a Shura, he faced the divine lightning tribulation, and perished at the moon god clan's hands. If he had possessed the thunder god's bulwark, the Shura's fate would have been changed. The Shura's remnant spirit had proudly told Ling Chen before. Back then, if it wasn't for the divine tribulation lightning, the 3 moon goddesses, and the void dragon god would not have been able to harm me at all. Before the Shura's remnant spirit had disappeared, it told Ling Chen to find a way to defend against lightning. He was telling Ling Chen that compared to the moon god clan and void dragon god, the divine lightning tribulation was far more terrifying. And now, this legendary blessing that the Shura had sought was given to Ling Chen, who possessed the lunar scourge. No matter if it was Xiao or Ling Chen, they both knew that the white tiger had not given Ling Chen this blessing out of gratitude. There was only a single reason, and that was Xiao, who possessed the Holy Qilin's bloodline. The white tiger's power was birthed from the Holy Qilin, and it did this to protect the Holy Qilin's bloodline, so that it would not go extinct. White tiger, this gift is too great. Ling Chen deeply breathed in and out. He raised his hands, and saw that there was still some pure purple lightning crackling around them. I don't want you to die, because I don't want to see the Holy Qilin's bloodline disappear from the mystic moon world. Moreover, I'm about to die, so if I don't give it away, it'll disappear with me. The white tiger's soul was even weaker after giving Ling Chen the blessing, and its voice was almost inaudible. It focused the last of its soul on Xiao, and Ling Chen could feel its reluctance to go, but also appreciation. This is simply fate that even the heavens would be jealous of, Xiao said emotionally. Better than anyone else, she understood what this thunder god's bulwark meant for both Ling Chen and her. This blessing meant that the greatest obstacle Ling Chen would face in the future was gone, and had greatly increased his strength. Xiao was simply ecstatic. This time, it was Xiao who brought me this luck, Ling Chen said, before gratefully saying to the white tiger, all in all, I will remember your kindness. This thunder god's bulwark is simply too important to me. The white tiger's voice slowly sounded out. For the Holy Qilin's bloodline, I don't regret this decision. However, I do not know if this decision was correct or not. After all, I don't know if I will create a Shura that is even more terrifying than the one from 10,000 years ago. Ling Chen completely understood what the white tiger was saying. The lunar scourge created Shuras. The Shura from 10,000 years ago was created because of the lunar scourge, and had fallen under the divine tribulation lightning. Now, the lunar scourge had reappeared, so it was possible that another Shura could be birthed. However, this Shura, because of the white tiger, would not fear lightning. If the Shura caused another catastrophe, the white tiger would be a sinner. Don't worry, although I possess the lunar scourge, I won't become a Shura because I don't have any reason to become a Shura. Ling Chen paused and thought of the ingredients necessary for resurrection. At least, I don't have any right now. The white tiger fell silent for a few moments before replying. You know the connection between the lunar scourge and Shura, but you don't seem to understand it fully. Eh? Ling Chen was quite confused. The lunar scourge has a curse called Heaven's Wrath. This curse will make those who possess the lunar scourge to walk on the path of Heaven's Wrath. In other words, with the lunar scourge, even if one does not want to, they will inevitably walk towards the path of the Shura. This has held true since ancient times until now. Ling Chen. Could it be that those who have the lunar scourge, even if they aren't willing or have any reason to, they'll still become a Shura sooner or later, including me, as someone who has subdued it? Ling Chen asked as his heart rate sped up, and he frowned. The lunar scourge had two debuffs, Heaven's Jealousy and Heaven's Wrath. Ling Chen had suffered from the Heaven's Jealousy the most, but he had never understood the Heaven's Wrath debuff. The white tiger seemed to be talking about this. That's right, the white tiger replied. It could feel the changes in Ling Chen's emotions, and it continued to speak. However, you don't need to be too worried. In order to create a Shura, the lunar scourge needs at least 12 God Orbs. If you don't want to become a Shura, then don't return more than 11 God Orbs. Moreover, even if you become a Shura, you'll be different to the Shura from 10,000 years ago. Different? Why would I be different? Ling Chen was quite confused. It's very simple. Your mind is stronger than his, and by quite a lot. This is evidenced through you conquering the lunar scourge. Shuras are created through killing, and once one becomes a Shura, they will receive immense power. At the same time, their 7 emotions and 6 pleasures will be turned into bloodlust. That bloodlust will make it so that the Shura will only desire to continuously kill. It was because of that bloodlust the Shura from 10,000 years ago killed nearly 10% of all creatures in the Forgotten Continent. Moreover, there are different types of Shuras. The lowest type of Shura is a Shura that is filled with bloodlust, but doesn't have the complete power of a Shura. In fact, that sort of being isn't truly a Shura, but a powerful and demonic murderer. The second type is like the Scarlet Flame Sword Emperor from 10,000 years ago. He had the bloodlust of a Shura, as well as the complete power of a Shura. He was a true Shura. Both of these Shuras are created by the lunar scourge? Ling Chen asked. That's right. The white tiger's remnant soul replied. They're both created by the lunar scourge, but their difference lies in their power. One has complete power, while the other only has part of the power of a Shura. From your explanation, it seems that the difference in power is quite great. Indeed, it is very great. Shuras without complete power simply cannot compare to true Shuras. As for why there are these two types, I do not know. Perhaps the lower type of Shura is missing something, and is unable to truly step onto the path of the Shura. Missing something? Ling Chen muttered to himself. The white tiger continued to speak. Perhaps you will find the answer to that question in future. There's also a third type of Shura that only exists in the legends and has never appeared before. However, you might become that sort of Shura. Third type? There's a third type? What are its characteristics? A type of Shura that only existed in the legends and had never appeared before, but was something he could become? Ling Chen became quite curious. The first type is a demonic murderer that comes close to the border of being a Shura. The second type is a true Shura. The third type breaks free of a Shura's chains and surpasses both a Shura's soul and power. Shura Emperor. Shura Emperor? Hearing this unfamiliar yet mighty name, Ling Chen's heart shook. The Shura Emperor is even more powerful than a true Shura, but it will not massacre like the normal Shura. A Shura Emperor has boundless bloodlust, but is able to control it, and has 7 emotions and 6 pleasures like a normal person. Shuras are said to be the most terrifying existences in the world, and those who receive a Shura's power lose their humanity as the price. However, if one becomes a Shura Emperor, their personality and mind will not be affected, and will even be able to control their 7 emotions and 6 pleasures. This type of Shura is many times more powerful than a normal Shura, maybe even more than 10 times. 10 times more powerful than a normal Shura. That was simply incomprehensible. Ling Chen had heard too many stories about how powerful the Shura had been in the past. However, the price for obtaining that sort of power was losing oneself to his or her bloodlust. There were no records of a being ever possessing that much power, as well as rationality, in the Forgotten Continent. How can someone become that type of Shura? And why do you say I might be able to become that type of Shura? Ling Chen hurriedly asked. The way to become a Shura Emperor is quite simple, but actually achieving it is as difficult as reaching the skies. The method is using one's mental energy to conquer the bloodlust that comes with the Shura's power. It sounds incredibly simple, but in the history of the Forgotten Continent, no one has ever achieved it before. You are the first human who has conquered the Lunar Scourge. Although this was partially because the Lunar Scourge was in a weak state, adding on the auspiciousness that the Holy Qilin brings, perhaps you really will be able to do it. Of course, the precondition is that the Shura Emperor isn't just a legend, and is actually a possibility. After all, no one has ever seen a Shura Emperor, and there are no records. Some say that the Shura Emperor is simply a story that was made up. The thing that a Shura has the most of is not power, but bloodlust. If one can control his bloodlust, they will surpass the level of an ordinary Shura. As such, the legend is somewhat believable. However, the terrifying nature of the Shura's power is something I witnessed with my own eyes back then. It is simply an indescribably powerful realm. The Shura was called the world's most powerful being, and I can attest to that. Wanting to control the bloodlust that even exceeds its power is more difficult than reaching the skies. Perhaps it's impossible. You're not an incredibly greedy person. This is something I'm certain of. You're obsessed with restoring the Lunar Scourge because you have a special and important reason. However, my selfish request is that you stop after retrieving 11 God Orbs. However, your future and the Lunar Scourge's futures are things that I cannot control. If you have a reason to desire the Shura's power or identity, then I hope that you can, through the protection of the Holy Qilin's auspiciousness, become the legendary Shura Emperor, as opposed to a demonic murderer. I hope you and the Holy Qilin will not perish at the Moon God clan's hands. Every creature has its selfish desires. Rather than you becoming a terrifying Shura that the divine tribulation lightning has no effect on, I even more so don't want to see the Holy Qilin's bloodline go extinct. Young human, you're the first true owner of the Lunar Scourge. If you decide to become a Shura, then the entire Forgotten Continent, no, entire Mystic Moon world, will be shaken up by you. When that time comes, whether you bring catastrophe or great blessings will depend on you, but will not be decided by you. I cannot see any more. I have already told all of this to the White Tiger City's mayor. As such, you don't need to worry about the consequences of killing me. Young human, protect yourself and protect your companions. I hope that one day, when the Holy Qilin matures, it will be able to reawaken the White Tiger clan's bloodline. After using the last of its soul's strength to say the things it wanted to say, the White Tiger's remnant soul dissipated. The Thunder God barrier disappeared, and the crackling of lightning also died down as the air became less chaotic. Ling Chen stood there and did not move for a while, going through every sentence that the White Tiger said. Ding, you are the first player in Mystic Moon to kill a mysterious god grade boss. You receive the rewards. Fame plus 100, 000, Gold Coins plus 100, 000, SP plus 100, 000, Unique Item God Slayer Insignia. God Slayer Insignia, Type, Insignia, Grade, None, Equipment Requirements, belongs to Ling Chen, cannot be transferred. A mysterious insignia with an unknown history. Awarded to the first player who kills a mysterious god grade boss by themselves. Does not give any bonus stats. Legends say that it can open an ancient ruins that has been sealed. A system announcement suddenly sounded out as a golden insignia floated down from above and landed in Ling Chen's hands. The insignia was quite eye-catching and was about the size of a ping-pong ball. No matter if it was its appearance or description, Ling Chen was quite familiar with it. He stopped thinking about all of the things the white tiger had said and took out two insignias that were the same size, had the same patterns, but were silver and a lighter shade of gold, the Celestial Slayer Insignia and Heaven Slayer Insignia. The Celestial Slayer Insignia was awarded to him when he killed the greedy giant toad, for being the first player to kill a celestial grade boss. The Heaven Slayer Insignia had been awarded to him for being the first to kill a Heaven's End grade boss. This God Slayer Insignia had been awarded to him for killing the first mysterious god grade boss. Not only were their appearances almost the same, even their descriptions were exactly the same. None of them had any stats, but all of them were able to open an ancient sealed ruins. Ling Chen now knew where the entrance to the ancient sealed ruins were under the fragmented ice layer at the Godchild Peak. Each of the three insignias shone in Ling Chen's hands. As if it had been ordained by the heavens, Ling Chen had collected all three of the insignias. This meant that Ling Chen could now open that mysterious door at the summit of the Godchild Peak. Godchild Peak, mysterious door, the highest place in the mystic moon world. A door that required three mysterious insignias to open. What could be inside? Ling Chen tightly gripped the three insignias, and the burning curiosity within him made him want to immediately return to the Godchild Peak. He looked around him, and found that the Thunder God barrier was mostly gone, though there was still some lightning on the ground. Ling Chen let out a long breath as he coldly asked, "Qiyu, what the White Tiger said about one becoming a Shura if they possess the Lunar Scourge whether they want to or not, is that true?" Qiyu could feel the suppressed anger in Ling Chen's voice, and after remaining silent for a while, she slowly replied, "Until now, no one has been able to escape the curse brought by the Lunar Scourge. However, that does not mean it's impossible. Perhaps Little Master will be the first to conquer the Lunar Scourge's curse, just like how he was the first to conquer the Lunar Scourge." Ling Chen fell silent. After hearing so many legends about Shura, they formed a firm impression in his mind: powerful, emotionless, cruel, savage, bloodthirsty, demonic murderers. No one could rival Ashura's power, but the cost of that power was losing themselves and becoming a god of killing. In that case, if he lost himself, what use would that power be? Back then, the Scarlet Flame Sword Emperor massacred 10% of all living creatures in the Forgotten Continent, and the end result was being feared by tens of thousands of creatures, then dying. As such, the Shura had always been a legend to Ling Chen, but not something that he himself wanted to become. Even if he had the opportunity, he definitely wouldn't allow himself to become one. Oneself was one of the most important things as a person. How would he be willing to give up his very self in exchange for power? However, why did the Shura's remnant spirit tell him that he didn't regret becoming a Shura, but instead enjoyed it? And why did he say that Shuras weren't emotionless beings, but rather, only those with the greatest emotions had the right to become Shuras? According to the White Tiger's words, there were some who did not become true Shuras, who were only fake Shuras filled with bloodlust. What did that sort of Shura lack? Could it be the emotions that the Shura's remnant spirit had spoke of? However, how could it be that one required an abundance of emotions to become a god of killing? The word, Shura, endlessly reverberated within Ling Chen's mind due to the white tiger's words. For Shura, he had to complete the lunar scourge, but he also had to avoid walking upon the path of the Shura. Ling Chen thought of the underground space under the novice village, and Tao Tai's words that he couldn't understand. The unavoidable fate. Evidently, this was referring to the path of the Shura. If I really must become a Shura. Whoosh. If this was during the early stages of the game, he would most likely have been quite excited. How fun would it have been to be a Shura in the game? However, he now knew that the Mystic Moon world was not just a virtual world. If he became a Shura, it wouldn't just be his identity in the game. Perhaps. God freaking damn it. Ling Chen shook his head and cast those thoughts out of his mind, and decided not to dwell on them. He had to complete the lunar scourge, and the curse could go screw itself. The lunar scourge failed at taking over my mind in the beginning, so I don't believe that it can change my nature to become a Shura. Ling Chen was only a sliver away from filling up his LV-49 EXP bar, so if there were high-leveled monsters nearby, he could easily reach LV-50. However, the white tiger's rampage left the surrounding area without any living creatures, so it wouldn't be easy to find monsters to kill. Xiao had already walked around the white tiger's body many times, and he now finally stopped. After giving a short cry of "Awu," he opened his mouth, and a gray light instantly covered the white tiger's corpse. Ling Chen's eyes widened. Surely Xiao wasn't trying to eat the white tiger's corpse. That was the guardian beast's corpse. As Xiao barked, the gray light completely covered the white tiger's body, and it slowly turned into specks of purple light and rushed toward Xiao's mouth. Xiao was indeed eating the white tiger's corpse. As the area that the gray light covered decreased, the white tiger's body began to gradually disappear. After 3 minutes, the last of the light from the white tiger's body had disappeared into Xiao's mouth. Despite consuming such a large body, Xiao's own size did not change at all. However, Ling Chen had long since become used to this, and did not find it strange. After consuming the white tiger, Xiao did not move, and quietly stood there, as if he was digesting the massive amount of power from the white tiger. After a while, a purple light rose up from Xiao's body, and a system announcement sounded out in Ling Chen's ears. Ding! Your pet Holy Spirit beast Xiao has successfully devoured the mysterious god-grade boss White Tiger's body, and his stats have increased. HP plus 20, 000, MP plus 10, 000, Defense plus 2, 000, Movement speed plus 50, Obtained skills, Thunder Bulwark, Lightning Attraction. After devouring the white tiger, Xiao's stats skyrocketed, causing Ling Chen's eyes to become like saucers. This sort of stat increase gave Xiao more stats than Ling Chen, leveling up 100 times. Not only that, he had also obtained 2 terrifyingly powerful skills, Thunder Bulwark, an ultimate defensive skill granted by the white tiger. Forever negates all lightning attack damage. Lightning Attraction, a skill granted by the white tiger that attracts lightning. When casted, can greatly increase the effects of lightning attacks within a certain range, causing the damage of all lightning attacks within 10,000 meters to increase by 100%. After casting, the effects cannot be controlled and does not distinguish between friend and foe. It can be cast and deactivated at will. Amount of time skill can be cast for 3,600 years. Taurus Orb. The purple light around Xiao's body disappeared. Although his stats had dramatically increased, his body had not become bigger at all. The only physical change was the faint rings of purple light spun around his horn. Thunder Bulwark gave Xiao immunity to lightning, like Ling Chen's Thunder God's Bulwark. Although Lightning Attraction, affected both friend and foe by boosting everyone's lightning attacks, it was still a skill that was extremely favorable for Ling Chen. After all, he not only did not fear lightning, but could also absorb it. The more powerful the lightning was, the more useful Thunder God's Bulwark would be. Compared to the increase in stats, the two skills that Xiao gained shocked Ling Chen much more. It was almost as if the White Tiger had left behind these skills as a gift for Xiao. As the White Tiger's body disappeared, a black glint of light on the ground caught his attention. Ling Chen walked over and picked it up. It was a jet-black piece of jade that was smooth as a mirror. It was shaped like a C, and fit perfectly in Ling Chen's hand. On the back was engraved a small tyrant character. Demon Jade Hook Tyrant, a jade that the tyrant demon beast carries. It is said that it was given to it by the then demon emperor. Unable to determine what material it is made of and its use. That's right, it was the tyrant demon beast's demon jade hook. Adding on this piece, he now had 4 demon jade hooks. Once he obtained all 10, he could go to the underworld and summon the demon emperor's soul. However, obtaining all 10 demon jade hooks meant killing all 10 ancient demon beasts. However, right now, he was far from strong enough to kill a demon beast. Out of the 4 that had perished, none of them had been directly killed by him. The war demon beast had been killed by Shi Ling's heavenly wrath of the 9 suns. The shadow demon beast had been killed by the Shura's remnant souls Shura's death domain. The ice demon beast had committed suicide, and the tyrant demon beast had been dragged down by the white tiger. Because Ling Chen knew he was far from strong enough, he didn't even think about collecting the demon jade hooks, and instead focused on gathering the lunar scourge's orbs. He had only obtained these 4 demon jade hooks through fate. What? Xiao barked in a low voice, and finally finished refining the white tiger's power. Xiao raised his head, and after barking a few times, he burped and some items shot out from his mouth and landed on the ground. They were things Xiao had created from refining the white tiger, so they definitely wouldn't be anything ordinary. Ling Chen hurriedly went over and picked the items up. The first was about as big as a soccer ball, and had a faint purple light around it. There were also 10 or so tooth-like things, as well as a ping-pong ball-sized orb that shone with a silver light. White tiger's teeth, the guardian beast white tiger's teeth. They are tougher than boulders, and can destroy many things. They can be forged into indestructible weapons, or indestructible defensive tools. There were 13 white tiger's teeth that came from a guardian beast. All of them were top-grade forging materials. If the dwarves saw them, they would faint from ecstasy. White tiger's heart, the core of the guardian beast white tiger's heart, which contained the most power out of the white tiger's entire body. Not only does it contain immense power, it can absorb nature energy to go through rebirth. However, apart from the white tiger, other creatures will find it incredibly difficult to control its power. Although this orb of light was as big as a soccer ball, it was incredibly heavy, and Ling Chen spent quite a deal of effort lifting it up. From the weight in his arms, he estimated that the white tiger's heart weighed at least 100 kilograms. Ling Chen immediately put it away, and wiped the non-existent cold sweat on his forehead, as he wondered if the dwarves had a way to harness its power. When Ling Chen picked up the last item, the 8 orbs in the lunar scourge started to shine. Evidently, this was the god orb inside the white tiger's body. Taurus Orb type, energy orb, grade, mysterious god, attribute, fire, equipment requirements, can only be socketed in the lunar scourge. Effects, all attacks, physical, magic, item, will have absolute critical hit. The Taurus Orb, the 9th orb, gave him an incredible state absolute critical hit. This meant that after equipping it, every single attack Ling Chen dealt would be guaranteed to be a critical hit. Before, only with the Battle Soul Possession would Ling Chen have absolute critical hit, but only for the next attack. With the Taurus Orb, he would permanently have this effect. What was even more terrifying was that this didn't only apply to physical attacks but magic attacks as well. In the virtual game world, only physical attacks could deal critical hits. It was common knowledge that magic attacks couldn't deal critical hits. And yet, the Taurus Orb had destroyed this norm. After all, magic attacks normally had a much larger AoE in range, and greater damage than physical attacks. If magic attacks could deal critical hits, an absolute critical hit at that, the consequences would be terrifying. Combined with the Cancer Orb, which ignored all defense, all of Ling Chen's attacks would have absolute critical hit, an absolute pierce hit. Every attack would deal damage that normal players wouldn't even be able to dream of. With the Taurus Orb, the Heartless Orb that Ling Chen had been using all this time became completely useless. Ling Chen unequipped it, then rearranged some of his other crystals and orbs before socketing the Taurus Orb into the second socket. A system announcement telling him that socketing was successful sounded out as Ling Chen's critical chance became. From this moment onwards, all of Ling Chen's damage figures would be purple. With that, I now have 9 orbs. Now, I'm only missing 3 God Orbs, Aries Orb, Leo Orb, and Capricorn Orb. Ling Chen muttered to himself as he put his hand on the Lunar Scourge. Obtaining the Taurus Orb had gone far more smoothly than he had thought, and only a few days had passed since he had obtained the Aquarius Orb. It was impossible for him to receive the next hint from Su'er within such a period of time, so he narrowed his eyes as he asked, "Qiyu, what are the effects of the last 3 orbs? Can you tell me?" Every orb was incredibly powerful, and all had different effects. After obtaining the Taurus Orb, Ling Chen became quite curious about the final God Orbs. Unexpectedly, Qiyu unhesitatingly replied, "You can more or less guess their effects from their names. The Leo Orb greatly increases your physical attack power, the Capricorn Orb greatly increases your magic attack power, and the Aries Orb, a defensive passive." Ling Chen asked. "No," Qiyu shook her head. "The Aries Orb's effect is a bit special. If Master obtained it now, to Master, it would be quite useless." "Useless? Why would it be useless?" Ling Chen was quite surprised. Currently, the 9 orbs he had obtained were all incredibly powerful. Every time he gained an orb, he would become much stronger. For example, the Taurus Orb nearly doubled how powerful Ling Chen's attacks were. Perhaps some orbs were stronger than others, but as mysterious god-grade orbs, they shouldn't be too weak. Why would an orb be useless to him? The Aries Orb is indeed one of the 12 God Orbs, and is just as powerful as the other God Orbs. However, currently, it's truly useless to Little Master. Speaking to there, Qiyu's voice became flirtatious. However, if Little Master became a Shura one day, things would be completely different. The most useless Aries Orb would become the most important orb to Little Master, and Little Master would rely on it more than even the 3 Saint Orbs. Ling Chen was completely confused. "What are you talking about? What does the Aries Orb do?" "Well," Qiyu giggled, then lazily replied, "Little Master will find out when he obtains the Aries Orb. Spoilers are boring. Plus, Little Master doesn't want to become a Shura, so even if I told you, you'd be quite disappointed. As such, it's better if I don't say." For things that Qiyu didn't want to say, Ling Chen wouldn't be able to force her to say them no matter what he did. However, Ling Chen's curiosity had now been piqued, and Qiyu refusing to say anything caused him to feel incredibly uncomfortable, but he could only give up. Killing the mysterious god-grade white tiger caused Ling Chen to become instantly rich in SP. He now had 300,000 SP, and it was beautiful to look at. After thinking about it, Ling Chen did not immediately spend the SP. He was incredibly close to LV50, and he would step into a new realm after hitting LV50. It was possible that both of his professions would be upgraded at once, giving him many new powerful skills. Just as he was going to find a place to farm monsters and level up, a system announcement telling him that someone in the real world was calling him. As such, Ling Chen could only put this matter aside and log off. After Ling Chen left the virtual world, he opened his yes and saw Xiao Ying standing next to him. He got up as he asked, "What is it?" Xiao Ying's expression was a bit hesitant as she said in a small voice, "Li Xiaoshui came and didn't tell us beforehand." Seeing the slight change in Ling Chen's expression, she added, "She drove here by herself and didn't bring anyone." Li Xiaoshui. If it wasn't for what had happened that day, Ling Chen would have waved his hand and asked Xiao Ying, and Xiao Shi to courteously send her back. No matter what her status was, if he didn't invite her, he didn't have time to waste on her. However, after the events of that day, he couldn't just do that. Ling Chen scratched his head, then put on his slippers, as he thought to himself, "There's indeed no such thing as a free meal, much less free sex." Even if Li Xiaoshui had prostituted herself out that day, it was now time to pay the prostitute's fees. Li Xiaoshui's crazy desire. "Where is she now?" Ling Chen asked in frustration. "In the courtyard," Xiao Ying replied. Ling Chen got out of bed and put on a jacket as he walked out. It wasn't bone-chillingly cold during winter in Suhang. Li Xiaoshui had a thin velvet coat around her, and she quietly stood in the courtyard. Hearing the footsteps behind her, Li Xiaoshui turned around and smiled at Ling Chen, looking both happy and flirtatious. "Am I still welcome despite not being invited?" Li Xiaoshui had come here by herself and hadn't even brought a bodyguard. With her status, this was quite a risk for her. Moreover, after how much their relationship developed, Ling Chen didn't have the face to turn her away. "Big Miss Li is my landlord. For my landlord to come, I should have been here to greet you when you arrived, let alone not welcome you," Ling Chen said helplessly. His gaze met Li Xiaoshui's, then moved away. After what happened between them, he felt quite awkward around her. "Landlord?" Li Xiaoshui's eyes sparkled as she took a small step forwards, and she gently spoke. "I, Li Xiaoshui, am already yours. Everything that's mine is naturally yours as well. If you like this bamboo sea wonderland, you can stay here for as long as you want. In fact, you can even demolish it if you like." Ling Chen coughed and almost choked. Behind him, Xiao Ying smiled as she tried to contain her laughter. "Master, I'm going to go take care of Tian. If there's anything, just let me know." After speaking, she ran off like a gust of wind. Only the two of them were left in the courtyard, and Ling Chen sat down in a bamboo chair as he rested his head on his hand. "Big Miss Li, what did you come here for today? Just be direct. Can't I just come to see my man?" Li Xiaoshui sat opposite him and rested her chin on her hands, as if she was a love-struck schoolgirl as she gazed at him. "If I didn't come here today, would you have come to see me? After pleasuring yourself, you immediately left and didn't even look after me, though I couldn't even get out of bed." Ling Chen gripped the armrest on the chair, unable to say anything. Li Xiaoshui laughed, then looked up and down Ling Chen as she said, "So it turns out the almighty and famous Ling Tian can get embarrassed as well. Now that's an interesting fact, as well as cute." It had been many years since Ling Chen had felt so flustered before. He straightened his body, wishing he could escape, but could only maintain his calm exterior as he replied, "Big Miss Li, every second of your time is worth millions of dollars. Your time is more valuable than anyone's time. I don't want to waste your time, so if you have anything to say, just say it. My actions from before were quite rash, but what's done is done. I seem to have taken advantage of you, and you achieved your goal. Now, I want to hear your reason." "My reason?" Li Xiaoshui smiled and continued to gaze at Ling Chen. It was a gaze of a woman looking at her man. "Isn't my reason obvious? I want you to become my man, My only man. What's your reason for wanting me to become your man? Ling Chen placidly asked. There are quite a few reasons for that. Li Xiao spoke naturally. It's because you're the first man that I've become interested in, the first person I've wanted to meet. I've been collecting information on you since a long time ago, and my curiosity towards you has continuously increased. When a woman becomes curious and interested in a man, she isn't far off from falling for him. You're incredibly powerful, and can give any woman the sense of security they want. Ever since I started becoming involved in the affairs of the Li family, every year, I've faced nearly 100 assassinations. A sense of security is something that I can only dream of. What else? Ling Chen wasn't surprised by this. As the successor to the Li family financial group, there would definitely be countless people who wanted to harm her. Xiao and Xiao, she had told him in the past that every month, there would usually be around 10 attempted assassinations. The Li family's guards and security officers were all elites within elites, so Li Xiao had always been fine. However, she had never been able to have true peace. Indeed, Ling Chen had the power to give Li Xiao a sense of security with his ability to turn the Long family upside down, as well as the Reapers in the shadows that he controlled. If he wanted to protect Li Xiao, no one in China would be able to harm her. However, this definitely wasn't all there was to it. There's also, of course, it's because you're Ling Tian. No woman would be able to resist such a powerful, influential, and handsome man. How could I, Li Xiao, not want such a powerful piece of eye candy? Li Xiao said as she smiled. No matter which gender it was, anyone was attracted to good looks, and Ling Chen was no exception. He shrugged as he said in a serious voice, I want to hear your true reasons. There are 3 of them. Li Xiao stretched out 3 white fingers. Firstly, you've always acted decisively, whether in the virtual world or the real world. You don't even bat an eye when challenging the Yin-Huang alliance, and fearlessly humiliate Long Tianyun, who no one dares to offend. You charged into the Long family's residence and killed thousands of people. In fact, calling you the biggest mass murderer in the past 100 years wouldn't be an exaggeration, and most murderers would seem like saints in front of you. These acts all show how cruel and decisive you are. Perhaps, to those you hate, you are incredibly merciless. However, I can tell that deep down, you're someone who heavily values relationships and righteousness. Back then, your little sister Ling Shuirua contracted the Isrock disease. From then onwards, you disregarded the risk of yourself being infected, and didn't leave her side as you took care of her. In trying to save her, you moved from Zhongzhou to Beijing. As far as I know, those years, you stayed by her side, and did not do anything you wanted to do. In fact, you essentially gave up everything for her. Just this alone is something that very few people in the world are able to do. Li Xiao said seriously to the whole world, the Isrock disease was a terrifying demon. When someone contracted the Isrock disease, everyone, including their relatives, would cast them aside and wouldn't even go near them. It wasn't that these people were all cold and cruel, but that the Isrock disease was simply too terrifying, and no one could fight against their fear. As such, Ling Chen staying by Shuirua's side greatly moved Li Xiao. From my talks with Ming Xian, I realized that you were helping her for Ling Shuirua's sake. However, after your little sister passed away, you decided to take revenge by charging into the Long family's residence alone. Evidently that day, you had planned to die. Luckily, the heavens decided that was not your time to die, so you lived on and came here. After Shuirua departed, you didn't have any reason to continue helping Ming Xian, and yet, you're still doing your best to help her. Very few people would do such a thing. Li Xiao leaned towards him as she smiled. A man who values relationships and righteousness like you wouldn't just cast aside the people beside him, right? My big brother Ling Tian, you've already taken away my first time. Surely you wouldn't shirk the responsibility, right? If I was in danger, would you sit by and watch? And if there was something important that I needed your help with, would you just ignore me? Ling Chen fell silent. It seemed that Li Xiao understood him quite well. After doing the deed with Li Xiao, even if Li Xiao pretended it never happened, he would never be able to do such a thing. This was because within his mind, Li Xiao, whose first time he had taken, now belonged to him. In that case, he would pay attention to her safety and would not allow anything to befall her, nor would he allow any other man to have her. For this reason, Li Xiao had seduced Ling Chen and allowed him to take away her first time, so that she would be tightly bound to him. What are the other two reasons? Ling Chen believed that the other two reasons were the truly important ones. Why did Li Xiao give up her first time to him? It couldn't be that she just wanted a sense of security? Love at first sight? Who was Ling Chen kidding? This was the Li family's big miss. Li Xiao stood up and hugged her chest as she leaned forwards and walked towards him. A person's fate is largely determined by the circumstances of their birth, and their efforts, though important, is of secondary importance. My background is one of riches and power, and I've worked harder than anyone else. Under the efforts from my father and myself, the Li Family Financial Group's total worth is now $2 trillion. I believe that the Li Family Financial Group's growth will not stop here, and within 20 years, there will be no one in China who can surpass us. Ling Tian, what would you do with such wealth? Ling Chen was completely dumbfounded. $2 trillion? With such wealth, what couldn't you do in the world? Even if I extravagantly spend this money, it would take me more than 10 lifetimes to spend it all. To me, money is simply a number that grows astoundingly quickly every day, but that is all. Before, seeing this figure grow, I would feel quite excited. However, after a long time, this feeling is dulled, and has now completely disappeared. Despite this, the Li Family Financial Group is incredibly important to my Li family, and supports millions of people. Even if I've lost interest, I still need to work hard to make the Li Family Financial Group grow and expand. As for the interest in money that I have lost, it has naturally fallen on other things, such as power? Ling Chen asked as he frowned. Nearly, but not quite. Li Xiao smiled, then continued, to most people, money and power are the two most important things in the world. However, the greatest power lies in the Long family's hands, and even if my Li family has 10 times as much wealth, we can never possess more power than the Long family, as well as the countless other political and aristocratic families. We always need to watch ourselves around them, and follow the rules they set, as well as accept whatever they rightfully take from us. What is it you want then? Li Xiao's words could cause anyone's heart to leap, but Ling Chen was incredibly excited after hearing these words. What I want is very simple, for the Li family not to be under any person or power. I want the enterprise that my family has put in blood, sweat, and tears to be fully controlled by my Li family and not be influenced by anyone else. Li Xiao said as she smiled. This was something simple? This woman's thinking was simply crazy. Ling Chen also stood up and looked at Li Xiao in a new light. He believed that Li Xiao had never said these words to anyone else before. Otherwise, the Li family would be in dire straits. He narrowed his eyes as he replied, "What shocking thinking. However, what does it have to do with me? Do you think I have the ability to help you achieve this grand dream?" "I'm not certain," Li Xiao said as she looked at him, her eyes filled with emotion. "But if there's a single person in the world who can help me fulfill this desire, it's definitely you." Long family's second son 1. I thought only a madman would be able to say the words that you just said, Ling Chen said as he looked at Li Xiao. Li Xiao smiled and met his gaze easily as she replied, "Just think of me as a mad person then. Why do you think I'll help you?" And why do you think I'll be able to help you fulfill your desire? Just because I could send the Long family into chaos? With your intelligence, you should know those are completely different things, Ling Chen said with a cold expression. Oh! Li Xiaoxue looked at him in amusement as she replied. Surely you're not thinking that I want to use your power and your hatred of the Long family to destroy them? Hee, darling, your ideas are so cute. A woman like me wouldn't dare to have such thoughts. The Long family is China's political pillar, and as a Chinese citizen, I want the Long family to be as powerful as possible. Why would I have such a crazy idea? Ling Chen felt a bit surprised. Before, he had thought that she wanted the Li family to have the Long family's position. After all, if the Li family wielded the most power in China, they would not be controlled or influenced by anyone else. The Li family would be able to have the greatest wealth and power in China. In order to achieve this, the Long family would have to be destroyed or greatly suppressed. Li Xiaoxue knew that Ling Chen completely hated the Long family and had single-handedly caused them to suffer a catastrophe. As such, Ling Chen had thought that she wanted to use him to deal with them. As such, he had been quite shocked when Li Xiaoxue refuted this. Li Xiaoxue smiled as she continued to speak. Is the only way not to be under the Long family to destroy them or suppress them? Let alone how crazy this idea is. Do you really think the Long family, which has existed for more than 1,000 years, can be taken down so easily? If it really was so simple, they would have been destroyed long ago. The Long family has an incredibly deep foundation and has many cards up their sleeves. This is something outsiders cannot even imagine. On the surface, it seems that the Long family only has the Xianyuan family and the 7 main forces protecting them. However, there are still 3 names that less than 10 people in China know about. What do you mean? Ling Chen asked. Dragon Claw, Dragon Scale, Dragon Blood. Li Xiaoxue's smile disappeared as her tone became serious. Tianlin, just a reminder that the surname Long means dragon. The Long family's secret forces? Precisely speaking, they're the Long family's trump cards. They're either 3 armies, or 3 organizations, or 3 people, or 3 weapons. Despite spending a lot of effort, I still don't know what they are, and only know the names. Even within the Long family, only Long Zhengyang truly knows what they are. Even Long Tianyun would have no idea. It's said they're hidden under the dragon lifeline under the Long family, and will not appear under normal circumstances. However, when the dragon lifeline starts to crack, that means the Long family is facing complete annihilation, and only then will they act. Over the past 1,000 years, countless large and small families have disappeared, and yet the Long family, despite having so many enemies, has stood firmly all this time. This is because they not only have the Xianyuan family and 7 main forces supporting them, but also Dragon Claw, Dragon Scale, and Dragon Blood protecting them. Our small Li family, which has developed for less than 100 years, attacking them would be like dashing an egg against rocks. It would be equivalent to suicide. Dragon Claw, Dragon Scale, Dragon Blood. Although there were less than 100 Reapers, they were all death gods who had walked out of hell, and their espionage skills were all top-notch. 2 or 3 of them were enough to create an intelligence net that covered an entire city. After returning to China, they had done much investigating on the Long family, but they had never heard these 3 names before. Li Xiaoxue had told him about these 3 mysterious names not to rebut his words, but rather to give him a warning. She knew that with the mysterious organization behind him, Ling Chen would be able to force the Long family into despair. However, he had to be wary of those 3 mysterious trump cards they had hidden away. Ling Chen could tell that Li Xiaoxue was warning him. In order to obtain such secret information, the Li family must have taken a great risk and paid a massive price. For her to tell him so openly about this, it was a massive favor. Ling Chen committed these 3 names to memory and his expression relaxed. "Thank you for telling me this. Please continue. I'm already yours. Do you really need to thank me for this?" Li Xiao flirtatiously smiled, looking so beautiful that Ling Chen felt slightly stunned. "We can't suppress them or take their position, but there's a better option, such as a marriage alliance between the Long family and Li family." "Then you should be talking to Long Zhengyang or Long Tianyun, not me," Ling Chen expressionlessly said. "With your Li family's immense background, and adding on the fact that you're the sole heir to the family and have extraordinary looks, I'm sure the Long family would have no reason to refuse." "Long Tianyun? He's called a man among dragon in the younger generation, but to me, he's just a well-dressed bug." Li Xiaoshui curled her lips in distaste. "Everyone praises him for being talented and wise, but after a few exchanges with him, these words sound like jokes to me. His supposed talent and wisdom are merely his bright and kind exterior, which masks a sinister and evil interior. People praise him for being incredibly capable and supporting the Yin Huang alliance by himself, with the Long family's foundation, as well as the support from the Xianyuan family and 7 main forces. Supporting a Yin Huang alliance is a piece of cake. Long Tianyun has done nothing. On the contrary, he offended a great calamity. In the future, if the Yin Huang alliance is destroyed, it will have been because of him. Having an extraordinary demeanor and being able to dominate any scene. What a joke. As the successor to the Long family, how could he not be all high and mighty and look down on everyone? Who would he have any reason to fear or respect? The only thing Long Tianyun can boast of is his family and background. With Long Tianyun's background, of course people would praise him immensely. However, if he really was that excellent, why would such an intelligent girl like Yunming Xi and fiercely reject a marriage alliance with him? The Long Tianyun that I know is a toxic and sinister, evil and petty person. You completely hate him, but he doesn't even have the right to be your enemy. Even if I, Li Xiaoshui, were faced with death, I still wouldn't want to marry such a person." Long Tianyun, who was publicly acknowledged to be the most excellent member of the younger generation, had been slammed into the dirt by Li Xiaoshui. There were very few people in China who dared to criticize Long Tianyun like this. Ling Chen's interest was piqued as he asked, "Since you don't want to marry Long Tianyun, could it be that you want to marry Long Zhengyang? Although Long Zhengyang is currently single and was quite handsome back in the day, but my standards aren't so low that I would want to marry someone who could be my father," Li Xiaoshui said as she wrinkled her nose. "Then what do you mean by marriage alliance? Could it be—" Ling Chen suddenly stopped speaking as he realized something, and he looked at Li Xiaoshui as his gaze became sharp. "You finally realized?" Ling Chen's reaction did not cause Li Xiaoshui to become scared. Instead, she laughed in delight. "Out of all the young men in China, it's not just Long Tianyun who possesses the Long family's blood." "What are you trying to say?" Ling Chen said expressionlessly as his body stiffened. Li Xiaoshui's expression did not change as she whispered, "Ling Chen, that was your old name, right? Ling Tianyu's your new name. However, wasn't Tianya a part of your name a long time ago?" Ling Chen's expression darkened as he frowned. "How do you know this?" Ling Chen coldly asked. "Just a guess," Li Xiaoshui smiled. "After compiling all the information on you, and taking into account the hatred you had for the Long family, as well as incomprehensible logic, I had a sneaking suspicion about you. After entertaining that suspicion, I discovered many shocking coincidences. Before meeting you, I was less than 10% certain of my suspicion, but after meeting you, I was 90% certain that I was right. Now, after seeing your reaction, I can't find any reason to doubt that suspicion anymore. Back then, the little Tianya, who contracted the Isrock disease and disappeared. Wait, no, I'm sure the true reason Tianya disappeared wasn't as how the internal of the Long family had reported. Ling Chen. Ling Chen had already decided to leave behind the matters in the past forever, and would never bring up his identity. He thought that the quiet child in the Long family, who no one paid attention to, had been long since forgotten, and that no one would even remember that he existed. And yet, the big miss of the Li family had spoken his name from back then, revealing that she knew about his identity. He simply couldn't understand how this woman knew about this matter that no one should know about. I can tell you that you're entirely correct. However, how did you discover this? Ling Chen's eyebrows were tightly furrowed, as a feeling of unease welled up within him. If a large family wants to survive, having a large intelligence network is a must. Without enough eyes and ears, they'll be taken down sooner or later. My grandfather and father both valued information greatly, so of course, the intelligence network covered the Long family as well. Even now, many of the people within the Long family are spies for the Li family. However, those with the courage and ability to plant spies in the internal of the Long family can be counted on a single hand. As such, we have a rough idea of the happenings within the Long family, including some secret matters. That includes the Long family's second son, who shouldn't have been born. The Long family's second son, too. What else do you know? Ling Chen asked. Li Xiaoshui's answer didn't answer how she knew he was Tianya from back then. Li Xiaoshui's expression became calm, with a hint of melancholy. She softly replied, "That poor boy was born in the most powerful family, and should have lived a life of riches and fame. However, fate played a cruel joke on him. As someone who possessed that family's bloodline, not only did he not enjoy what was rightfully his, he was isolated and rejected. His grandfather and father did not celebrate his birth or spread the news. Rather, they tried to suppress the information so that outsiders would not find out, and so that the truth would be forever sealed. However, in the end, he was still part of the Long family and wasn't abused or malnourished. However, his seniors never acknowledged his identity, and barely anyone came to see him. Within the family, his identity was a secret known by all. However, no one dared to tell this to an outsider. Although he was a son of the Long family, his own relatives cast him aside, making everyone else feel quite curious. They knew he was someone who should not have been born, and that his existence didn't bring any joy to the Long family. Instead, he was like a thorn in the side of the Long family. It was possible that he would be disposed of one day. As such, even the lowest maids and butlers avoided him, and didn't treat him with respect, only pity. Li Xiaoshua looked at Ling Chen's expressionless face as she continued. It's incomprehensible why people would do this to their own flesh and blood. Back then, my grandpa tried to analyze this matter. He thought that perhaps it was because the Long family always only had one successor. Before that boy, the Long family already had Long Tianyun, and his birth caused the Long family to fall into chaos. In China, because of the rapidly growing population, there has always been a strict birth policy. This policy was created by the Long family, so they themselves must adhere to it. If it was revealed that the Long family had a second son, there would be an uproar all over China, causing irreparable damage to their reputation. Another possible reason is that perhaps his mother was of a low status, which was why the Long family did not want to admit the boy's birth. Furthermore, it was possible that the Long family was worried that these two successors would fight between themselves to inherit the Long family, and in order to avoid this, they steeled their hearts and neglected him, so as to prevent him from gaining the power to challenge Long Tianyun. Ling Chen remained silent. All of these reasons were hypotheses thought up by my grandpa. After thinking about it, he couldn't find any other reasons. However, the fact that that boy was Long Zhengyang's biological son and possesses the pure bloodline of the Long family is indisputable. Would you be able to tell me the true story that my grandpa was unable to find out? Li Xiaoshua asked as she looked at Ling Chen. Ling Chen shook his head, his expression terrifyingly peaceful. I have even less of an idea. Oh. Li Xiaoshui was quite surprised, then smiled as she said, If your father knew that the person he feared most was Dash, I have no father. Ling Chen coldly cut her off. All right. Li Xiaoshui scratched her head. You're very intelligent, Ling Chen said as he looked at Li Xiaoshui. You bound yourself to me through what happened last time we met, making me lower my guard. Otherwise, I would kill you to silence you for what you just said. I won't deny the things you said, because I don't want to lie, nor do I want you to think that I'm still affected by those things. On the contrary, I've long since stopped caring about what happened during those years. In fact, I rejoice that they treated me that way, so I could leave that place with no regrets. Now, the only thing I feel for the Long family is hatred, but that hatred has nothing to do with how I was treated during those years. As for a father, I've never had one. Then what about your mother? Li Xiaoshui suddenly asked. She died. She died when I was 1 year old. I've never met her, and I don't even know what she looked like, what she was called, or how she died. Ling Chen self-mockingly laughed. However, none of this matters to me. You can just assume that I jumped out from a rock and have no parents. Oh, so it's like that, Li Xiaoshui said as she nodded. A look of hesitation appeared in her eyes, as she decided not to say what she was going to say next. Instead, she changed the topic. I'm sure you know how you went missing, right? I'm already your woman, so I have the right to know this secret, right? I promise I won't tell anyone. Back then, I was infected with the Isrock disease, but not through normal means. It was through Long Tian Yun stabbing me with an infected needle, Ling Chen said slowly as he narrowed his eyes. Back then, it was this hatred that allowed him to make it through his years in heaven. Talking about it now, he felt extremely calm. Afterwards, I was put in quarantine. One night, I was put in a sack and buried alive hundreds of kilometers away. Li Xiaoshui's hands trembled as a hint of rage flashed in her eyes. She took a step forwards and grabbed Ling Chen's right arm with her right hand as she hurriedly asked, What happened after that? Why didn't you die? Did someone save you? And how was your Isrock disease cured? When I was being buried alive, I was only conscious for part of the time. I heard from the two people who were burying me the truth, so I didn't allow myself to die and vowed to take revenge. As such, I lived on. When I was dug up, I had already been buried for 2 days and 2 nights. Afterwards, I was sent to a place more terrifying than hell. Speaking to there, Ling Chen did not continue. He wouldn't tell Li Xiaoshui the rest. Li Xiaoshui was smart enough not to ask, and the hand holding Ling Chen's arm tightened as she said, You're so young, and yet you have such terrifying strength and such a monstrous body. I'll never be able to imagine what you experienced during those years. With your Li family's intelligence network, I'm not surprised that you knew about my existence back then. This is a well-known secret among some of China's highest officials. However, how could you know that I'm that person? Everyone knows that once you contract the Isrock disease, you'll have no hope of surviving. Even if I didn't disappear back then, I still would have died. How could you possibly think that I'm someone who's dead? Did you find some sort of clue on my body? Ling Chen asked. In this world, there's no such thing as a secret that can be kept forever, Li Xiaoshui said. First and foremost, it was because of my instincts as a woman. Ling Chen's eyes twitched. I instinct? That's right. Li Xiaoshui matter-of-factly nodded. Sometimes, a woman's instinct is the most terrifying thing in the world. Even if it was originally because of your instincts, surely you have some concrete proof, Ling Chen said with a strange expression. Concrete proof, for example, the Sword Emperor. I knew that she knew your true identity. Speaking to there, Li Xiaoshui glanced at Ling Chen's reaction, then gave a meaningful smile. The strange reaction between you and the Sword Emperor during your battle, and the fact that the Sword Emperor suddenly carried you out of the Long family's residence that night and did not return, gave me an idea. From my reports, the girl seems gentle and weak on the outside, but has an incredibly tough interior. She's also a completely lovesick girl, and the feelings she had from when she was 10 are still engraved on her heart. In fact, she wanted to destroy her entire life for a certain little boy, and sealed off all her emotions. Only that Tianya could make her react so strongly, right? What do you think? I'm sure that if you realized this, the Long family would also realize that. However, it's common knowledge that anyone who contracts the Isrock disease will die without a doubt, so it's impossible for the Long family to think that it's me. Why would you think I'm that person? Ling Chen asked as he looked at her. The most conclusive evidence. Li Xiaoxue rested her chin on her hand as she earnestly thought, then shook her head. In order not to provoke an exaggerated reaction from you, I won't tell you just yet. However, I'm sure you'll find out soon. In that case, tell me your goal. Ling Chen didn't continue asking, and instead changed the topic. You want to take advantage of my hatred to use me to kill or cripple Long Tianyun, then reveal my own identity. At that time, I'll become the Long family's only successor, and may be able to control the Long family after some years. You then want to bind the Li family and the Long family together through me. You're completely correct. Li Xiaoxue beamed. However, there's something you didn't take into account. Ling Chen slowly shook his head. I have no interest in power. As for returning to the Long family, I have even less interest in that. In fact, after venting out my hatred, I want to get away from them as much as possible. Of course I know all of this. Surprisingly, Li Xiaoxue laughed. If Long Tianyun truly died or was crippled, in order not to become the greatest sinner of the Long family, Long Zhengyang would have to beg you to succeed the Long family, even if he had to kneel down. However, you only possess hatred towards the Long family, and will definitely refuse. There are countless people who desire the power that the Long family possesses, but to you, you would rather die. As such, as your woman, how could I let you suffer like that? All you need to do is vent out your hatred and kill or cripple that Long Tianyun. As for succeeding the Long family, Li Xiaoxue placed her hands on her abdomen as she gently said, leave that to our child. Ling Chen's legs weakened as he fell to the ground. He had thought about the battle with Li Xiaoxue the entire night. He knew that Li Xiaoxue had some sort of goal, but he couldn't figure out what it was. How could she have let him do such a thing? And now, he found that he not only had slept with Li Xiaoxue, but had fallen into a massive trap. Returning to the Godchild Peak. What child? Don't joke around like that. Ling Chen's scalp felt numb, and his voice slightly trembled. The shock from Li Xiaoxue's words was simply too great, giving Ling Chen a bad feeling. Li Xiaoxue glanced at him. Don't you know that there's a way to make sure a woman gets pregnant after sleeping with a man? Email protected, $% Ling Chen was completely dumbfounded. He remembered that there was a saying about this in some movie or book. Could it be that this woman really? God damn it. I've got countless things to do. I'm not prepared at all. Seeing Ling Chen's expression darken, Li Xiaoxue couldn't help but giggle. Silly man, do you really think such a method exists? It's just something made up in a book. Yesterday was a safe day, so you don't need to worry. You're not in a great spot at the moment. I heard from Meng Xian that you're doing something incredibly important, so even if you like children, you wouldn't want to have a child now. How could I do such a thing to you? Ling Chen, who felt his heart beating incredibly quickly, wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. If Shui Rua had said the same words, he would have been delirious with joy. However, Li Xiaoxue's words had nearly scared Ling Chen to death. If Li Xiaoshui really had a child, not only would he have countless worries, he would be led around by her by the nose for a while. Not only would he have to spend time and effort to protect her safety, but he would also have to cooperate with her on many things. Moreover, with Li Xiaoshui's ambition, it really was possible that she would have a child to bind the Li family to the Long family. Luckily, it was just a joke. "Don't make these sorts of jokes in future," Ling Chen savagely said. "It's not that I don't like children. However, based on our relationship, it's impossible for us to have a child. This is only the second time we've met. What happened yesterday was just a one-night stand. Moreover, I'm doing something that doesn't allow me to be distracted at all. If I have a child, that would only bring harm to the child, as well as many other people." "Got it? All right, I was just joking. Why do you need to be so angry?" Li Xiaoshui pouted, acting like a childish girl. Seeing the big miss of the Li family acting like this, Ling Chen felt quite strange, and couldn't feel angry anymore. He waved his hand, saying, "Since you already planned out everything from yesterday, then told me all of your wild ambitions. I hope you can tell me what you want me to do. If it's just dealing with Long Tianyun, I can do that while doing what I need to do. Although I don't want to distract myself. I'll make that Long Tianyun wish he was dead. I haven't truly acted yet. It's just that I haven't yet decided how I should vent my hatred out on him." When talking about Long Tianyun, Ling Chen's voice became incredibly sinister and ruthless, releasing a pressure that made Li Xiaoshui feel suffocated. He looked at Ling Chen for a while longer before replying, "I've already achieved my goal in coming here. Since I've become your woman, I want you to understand me. I've never told anyone about those ambitions before, not even my father. Similarly, as your woman, I'll always think about you first and won't drag you down, especially during a time when you can't be distracted. I've already said I wanted to say, and I'm sorry for coming here without asking you first. Well, it's your fault for making me miss you so much. I promise this won't happen again," Li Xiaoshui said as she smiled. Before Ling Chen could reply, she walked over as she said, "In that case, I won't waste my man's precious time. I should be going back now." After walking over to Ling Chen, Li Xiaoshui suddenly stood on her toes and leaned in towards Ling Chen. Ling Chen subconsciously leaned back a bit, but still felt Li Xiaoshui's hot and wet lips touching his face. Li Xiaoshui giggled, then warmly said, "My man, remember to live happily. Don't let your burdens weigh you down. There are many people who want to help you carry them." Unexpectedly, Li Xiaoshui left without making any requests. This sudden meeting was very short, and most of it was Li Xiaoshui talking. Just as she had said, it was so that Ling Chen could understand her more, and she didn't ask anything of him. When Li Xiaoshui's sports car had driven a short distance, it suddenly stopped, and the driver's window was rolled down. That's right. The construction of the new city is about to be completed, and there's still less than a week to go. Come and have a look when you have time. You'll definitely be shocked. Moreover, if I'm right, the Skyfall dynasty should be moving against the Yin Huang alliance soon, so also pay attention to that. Also, after cutting off ties with the Skyfall dynasty, my Snow Moon Luan is going to resurface again. There are a lot of pretty beauties in there." After saying this, the car's window slid up, and the car's engines boomed as she sped off. "I just can't see through this woman," Ling Chen muttered as he shook his head. This woman was simply uncontrollable. Although she had told him her biggest secret, showing her trust in him, she didn't ask anything of him, and had said that she wouldn't drag him down. However, Ling Chen did not feel at ease at all. Why do I feel like I fell into a trap? I hope I'm just overthinking. There was something Ling Chen was certain of, that Li Xiaoshui wanted to become equals with the Long family that wielded the most power in China. Countless people had this desire, but no one dared to do anything about it. Evidently, Xiao Shui intended to put her plan into action, including the matter about the child. Even if it wasn't now, she would do it sooner or later. However, to Ling Chen, this didn't seem like a bad thing. After thinking for a while, Ling Chen picked up his phone. Guiya, has Bingyao recovered yet? She has fully recovered. What would Master like her to do? Tell her to come to Su Hang. Her duty will be to protect Li Xiao Shui. Roger, she'll arrive by dusk at the latest. Guiya's voice sounded quite strange. A flashy-looking, vermilion-red sports car rushed out of the Bamboo Sea Wonderland and stopped in front of Li Xiao Shui's car team. Li Xiao Shui got out and looked back at the Bamboo Sea Wonderland as she smiled and tapped a rose-red nail against her lips. Whoops, yesterday seems to have been a dangerous day. What should I do? After returning to the game world, there was no longer any lightning in the sky or on the ground. Within his field of vision, there was no one else around. The chaos in the White Tiger City should have calmed down by now. Ling Chen wanted to enter the White Tiger City to have a look, but after thinking about it, he gave up on that idea. Although the White Tiger had told the White Tiger City's mayor about what had happened, telling him that Ling Chen didn't bear any responsibility in killing the White Tiger, it was still the White Tiger City's guardian beast. It was something that the people worshipped, and if the citizens found out that he had killed the White Tiger, even with the White Tiger's explanations, they would still view him as an enemy. After looking through his bag, Ling Chen found that he only had 2 spatial orbs left. After all, he had spent most of them climbing the Godchild Peak. Luckily, he still had a spatial stone from his adventures in the East Ocean continent, which he could give to the dwarves to make many more spatial orbs. After leaving for so long, I should go and have a look. Ling Chen muttered as he looked towards the east. Li Xiao Shui had told him that the new city was nearly complete, and it would be the first and only player city in the China region. It was the City of Hope he had given to Meng Xian and Heartstream. Now that most players had reached LV50, it was the game's second profession upgrade period. After their second profession upgrade, players became much more powerful, and the Fairy Forest would no longer be a place that ordinary players couldn't enter. This meant that the chances of the new city being discovered increased every day. Although there was still a week until it was completed, these 7 days would be filled with danger. After so long, he wondered how Chi-Chi and Meng Xian were doing. Thinking to there, and remembering that he had no way to find the next orb, his desire to go and have a look became stronger. He picked up a spatial orb, but after thinking, he decided not to go to the new city, but elsewhere. A white light flashed and Ling Chen appeared within a bleak and white world. Xiao cried out before sealing herself off. This was the summit of the Godchild Peak. With the Aquarius Orb, Ling Chen didn't fear the cold, but Xiao couldn't endure it for very long. As such, she sealed off all of her consciousness within the lunar scourge. Because not a long time had passed, the fissure in the ice was still there. After walking along the fissure, Ling Chen quickly found the place where he had fallen down, and he sank down into the ice as he quickly moved through it. When he found the entrance with a strange barrier, he moved over to it and jumped down, falling on the cold, hard ground. Ling Chen looked up. In front of him was the mysterious door hidden at the summit of the Godchild Peak. A dangerous intruder. The summit of the Godchild Peak, an incredibly harsh and bleak environment. What sort of heaven-shaking secret could be behind this mysterious door? Could it be something left behind by a true god from the ancient era? Standing in front of the mysterious door, Ling Chen took out the Celestial Slayer, Heaven Slayer, and God Slayer insignias. The silver, light gold and gold insignias shone with a greater light when they were held together. After confirming where the 3 holes were, Ling Chen went and placed the Celestial Slayer insignia in the first hole, then the Heaven Slayer insignia in the second hole, then finally the God Slayer insignia in the final hole. Clang! the instant all three insignias were placed in their respective holes, they began to shine with a brilliant light, causing Ling Chen to squeeze his eyes shut. When he opened his eyes, he found that this dark, underground region was now filled with a white, pristine light. The mysterious door was also covered with a white light, but it didn't seem like it was going to open. The three insignias were probably this door's keys. However, after putting them in their places, why isn't the door opening? Do I need to push it open myself? As Ling Chen talked to himself, he stretched out his hand onto the door. As his fingertips touched the light on the door, something flashed in front of Ling Chen's eyes as a circle of light began to spin on the center of the door. After a brief moment, the circle of light disappeared, leaving behind a black mark of a waning moon. Above, the three insignias continued to shine with a bright light, and the mysterious door was still covered with a white light. And yet, this black mark didn't seem to be affected by the brilliant white light at all, and still looked incredibly dark. It was as if the light did not dare to approach the mark, for fear that it would be devoured by the darkness. Looking at the dark mark on the mysterious door, Ling Chen's eyebrows jumped, because this dark mark and the lunar scourge's shape were exactly the same. Was it a coincidence? If it wasn't a coincidence, could it be that this door's secret was related to the lunar scourge? Ling Chen was quite shocked. After thinking for a while, he stretched out his right hand and touched the lunar scourge to the dark mark. As the lunar scourge touched the mark reacted as if it was an awakened beast and spread at an astonishing rate. Soon, the entire door became jet black and devoured all of the light. In front of Ling Chen was a wall of darkness. At the same time, a powerful suction force came from in front of him, pulling his body forwards into the space behind the mysterious door. North of the fairy forest, the black-clothed 100 miles of ice stood straight as a pen on the grass. If it wasn't for his clothes rippling in the wind, he would have seemed like a sculpture as his sharp eyes gazed in front of him. He had maintained this pose for a long time. Finally, a white light flashed in front of him as a white-clothed man appeared. Yo-ho-ho-ho. As soon as Winter of that year appeared, he started to yell out. This elder here has finished his second profession upgrade. Even though the upgrade quest was a bit ridiculous, with this elder acting, it was but a simple matter. He opened up his stats page as he delightedly showed his stats, which had greatly increased to 100 miles of ice. Look, 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 look. How is it? Reckon I can insta-kill you? 100 miles of ice blandly looked at his stats page, then looked away. Winter of that year grinned, then put his stats page away as he went over. How are things? Did anyone approach here ever since I left? None. 100 miles of ice coldly replied. That's good. I was afraid that without the handsome me, you wouldn't be able to deal with the intruders. After the second profession upgrade, players have become much stronger. Winter of that year sat down next to 100 miles of ice and waved his hand. All right, it's your turn to do your profession upgrade. Don't you worry about me. Even if an army of thousands or tens of thousands people come, I'll still shoot all of them into hornets' nests. 100 miles of ice lowered his crossed arms and silently departed. Winter of that year, who was familiar with 100 miles of ice, was used to him not saying any greetings or farewells. He turned around and looked towards the new city. They had watched as it had been built from the basic scaffolds to the current near-finished state. He and 100 miles of ice had watched almost the entire process, and they could be said to be one of the witnesses of the new city. They had remained here the entire time, and now their mission was about to be completed. Both of their hearts had been greatly changed over this period of time. Back then, Winter of that year had rashly promised to protect the new city when he saw Yunming Xian's beauty. However, watching the new city grow bit by bit every day, and staunchly defending it, they gradually felt that protecting this city was their responsibility. This was because they weren't just protecting the first player city in Mystic Moon, but a miracle. The creation of this new city will definitely shock the world. I can't wait for that day. Winter of that year sighed as he gazed into the distance. Boss and I actually stood guard here for so long. Then again, it's an incredible thing. These last few days will be the most important days. We definitely can't let anyone get through, otherwise it'll all be for nothing. After talking to himself, Winter of that year put his hands behind his head as he lazily lay on the grass. He closed his eyes, but his sensitive hearing scouted out any sounds around the area. Although they had stood guard here for a long time, the high-level monster territories nearby meant that they did not lose out on training. Now, both Winter of that year and 100 Miles of Ice had reached LV50. Because at least one of them had to stand guard, they had to take turns in doing their second profession upgrade. Just then, Winter of that year had upgraded his profession from archer to marksman. After he returned, it was 100 Miles of Ice's turn. Based on how long it had taken him, if everything went smoothly, 100 Miles of Ice's second profession upgrade would take around 4 to 6 hours. If it didn't go well, for example, if his quest was even more ridiculous than Winter of that year's, it could take even longer. After Winter of that year rested for 10 minutes, his ears twitched and his eyes opened. He unhurriedly stood up as he grumbled. Time for work again. It's only one person. In the distance, a person without a mount walked over. Indeed, it was just him alone. During this period of time, most of the people who had come here were by themselves. Some were in group of 2 or 3, and there was only a single party with more than 3 people. After all, in order to reach here, they needed to pass through the territory of LV70 to LV80 monsters. In the face of the harsh penalties for dying, most people didn't dare to take this risk. Those with the confidence and ability to come here were very few in number, and only experts among experts could do such a thing. With how vast the Forgotten Continent was, it was incredibly rare for anyone to come here. As such, Winter of that year and 100 Miles of Ice rarely saw anyone, and they usually came in few numbers. With their strength and ambushes, they were able to take care of these people easily. Against a single person, they faced no pressure at all. You dare to come? We'll kill you. Again? We'll kill you again. You dare to come after dropping 2 levels? We'll kill you. No one would dare to come back after dropping 3 levels. During this period of time, the 2 of them had dealt with around 20 waves of players, and had defeated all of them. In other words, they had saved the new city from danger 20 or so times. Once the new city was exposed, disaster would befall it. This is my road, and these are all my trees. If you want to get past, go screw yourself. Not a chance. Winter of that year jumped out from behind a rock and stood with his legs spread apart and his hands on his waist as he heroically blocked this intruder. The intruder was wearing a crimson magic robe covered with flame inscriptions. He held a red magic short staff, and even his cloak had fiery patterns on it. He stopped walking and looked up, his eyes giving off an incredibly sinister, cold light, revealing his arrogance. A player? You want to stop me? That's right, I'm a player. And that's right, I'm blocking you. See the village behind me? The boss and I got here first, so it's our territory now. As such, before the boss and I leave, no one's allowed to come in. I'll give you 2 choices. Turn around and leave, or the handsome me will send you off. I promise that I'll send you far, far away, but I won't be gentle. Lil bro, which option would you like to pick? Despite acting like this, Winter of that year definitely wasn't an idiot. Instead, his mind and senses were far better than a normal person's. He could clearly see the savage gaze in this person's eyes, so he didn't show him any courtesy. Ha ha. The intruder started to laugh. It was an incredibly cold and mocking laugh, and he looked at winner of that year as if he was an idiot who had made an incredibly funny joke. What if I don't choose any of those two options? Winner of that year crossed his arms as he wildly laughed. There's no one who hasn't chosen one of those two options. Looks like you've chosen the second option. Ayaya, the handsome me has always been kind and compassionate, gentle and virtuous, Amitabh, and I dislike fighting the most. However, since you don't want to leave, the handsome me will have to send you off. Sun Yin had been casually continuing his journey when a grasshopper jumped out and demanded to fight. At least, that was how it felt at that moment. If this was a high-level boss, he would consider fighting it. However, this was a player, and one with a face he was unfamiliar with. As the number 4 ranked player on the Heaven rankings, there were very few people in the China region that Sun Yin took seriously. He knew everyone on the Heaven rankings and Earth rankings. He only feared the super experts on the Heaven rankings, and was wary against the experts on the Earth rankings. He did not take anyone else seriously at all. Because he had never seen this person before, he was sure that he wasn't on the Heaven rankings or Earth rankings. As such, he was merely a piece of trash whom he could easily destroy. And yet, this person who was about to die was acting so arrogantly. Sun Yin couldn't help but coldly laugh. Bullying the weak was one of his greatest pleasures. He slowly raised his right hand, as a red flame appeared in his hands. It grew bigger and bigger until it reached his shoulders, and he mockingly replied, "Really now? I want to see if you can send me off, or if it'll be me who sends an idiot like you off to hell." "Ho! A fire mage. Wait, no. You're a flame wizard who's done his second profession upgrade." Winter of that year grinned as he inwardly cursed. "You dare to call my handsome self an idiot? I'll beat you up so badly that even your mom won't recognize you." Winter of that year seemed like a simpleton who easily fell for women. With just a few words in her beauty, Yunming Xian had coerced Winter of that year into promising to stand guard there for a few months. He seemed stupid and harmless, but held grudges and wasn't one to forgive easily. Hearing Sun Yin call him an idiot, the flames of his anger rushed up as he decided the way he would send this intruder off. He wouldn't be so gentle anymore. An azure bow appeared in Winter of that year's hands. The bow wasn't very big, and it seemed to be made out of rattan wood. No matter the color or shape, it seemed to be a low-grade bow. After seeing this weapon, Sun Yin snickered in contempt and felt that it would be a humiliation for him to fight with this idiot. He sent the flames in his hands towards Winter of that year with a whoosh as he coldly spoke. "Idiot! Remember to put on your glasses when you go out in future. There are some people who trash like you can't afford to offend." As the Flame Emperor, Sun Yin had been superior to those around him all his life. With his extraordinary talent, as well as hard work, his arrogance grew more and more as his body also grew to maturity. This was special in the virtual world. Apart from a few people, most players were just like ants to him, and he felt that even talking with them lowered his status. However, all in all, he had the right to be so arrogant. However, it was a pity that although he hadn't met a super expert from the Heaven rankings, he had met someone who looked simple, but was actually an incredibly tough and solid iron plate. Sun Yin had casually thrown out a fire wall that fire mages, after their first profession upgrade, could use. However, this fire wall was much bigger than a normal fire wall, and was much faster as well. As a natural fire esper in the real world, this sort of talent came along with him into the virtual world. His control over fire was stronger than most fire mages by over 100 times. His title as the Flame Emperor and ranking as number 4 on the Heaven rankings weren't just for show. Just as Winter of that year took out his weapon, he felt a wave of heat rush towards him. As someone who loved fighting, he had fought against quite a few fire mages before, and had a decent understanding of fire magic. However, He had never seen such a huge and fast firewall before. Despite feeling incredibly shocked, he reacted quickly and leapt back by 3 body spaces as the firewall roared past him. Holy moly! This flame wizard wasn't any simple guy. Winter of that year, who had barely dodged the firewall, looked at Song Yen with a serious expression as he exclaimed inwardly. Seeing that his attack missed, as well as Winter of that year's strange movements, Song Yan's eyes narrowed. He swept out with his left hand, as 3 fire bombs flew out towards the place Winter of that year had jumped. Against this fameless person, who held a weapon that was, at most copper grade, Song Yen didn't even bother using his second profession's upgrade skills. These 3 fire bombs completely shocked Winter of that year. Mage attacks dealt great damage and had a long range. Moreover, most of them had a large AoE, but they also had a big drawback, and that was that spells all require a casting time that varies according to each mage's abilities. The casting time for mages after their first profession upgrade was around 1 second, and after casting spells they were in a frozen state for 1 second. In other words, there was usually at least 1 second between casting spells. And yet, less than half a second had passed between Song Yen casting the firewall and 3 simultaneous fire bombs. Bang! 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 The 3 fire bombs exploded simultaneously, creating a massive blast that covered Winter of that year. Can't even take a single hit! Song Yen coldly laughed, as a condescending look arose in his eyes, and he noticed an icy glint. That icy glint came after the explosion and was extraordinarily fast. Fast to the point that Song Yen could only watch it get bigger without being able to evade it all. The arrow precisely and accurately hit Song Yen squarely in the middle of his forehead. Song Yen grunted and fell to the ground. After the fire from the explosion disappeared, Winter of that year could be seen with a smirk on his face. His left hand gripped his bow with his right hand still in the air, maintaining his pose from releasing the arrow. There was a thin layer of cold sweat on his forehead as he muttered inwardly, "Goddamn, that was way too close." Song Yen flipped his body up, his expression as disgusted as if he had just eaten a bucket of dung. "You? Impossible!" He didn't believe that this person could dodge 2 of his attacks in succession, and even counterattack. What's more, that attack hit him precisely in the middle of his forehead. The amount of damage caused by a bow-type attack depended on the region where it hit. When hitting the target's head, the chance of critical hits was doubled. Moreover, when hitting the target's forehead, the attack would have been a guaranteed critical hit, and it had a high chance of knocking the target over, canceling out any skills that were being activated. However, the forehead was incredibly difficult to hit, and even a slight deviation would halt this sort of effect. To archers, hitting their target's forehead was almost impossible. Even against a stationary target at close distance, it was almost impossible to hit this point. It was even more impossible during battles. And yet, the arrow that hit Song Yen hit him right in the center of his forehead, knocking him over. This was absolutely a stroke of luck. It definitely couldn't happen again. You bastard! Not being able to kill this person in 1 hit, and instead taking a lucky shot like this, Song Yen felt incredibly humiliated. His arrogance became fury as his expression darkened. After cursing, he stretched out his hands as 2 balls of purple flames lit them up. Song Yen was so furious that he no longer held back and wanted to burn this tiny archer into a crisp. Winter of that year had personally experienced how terrifying Song Yen's flames were. Moreover, what he just used were skills from his first profession upgrade. If he used his powerful flames from his second profession upgrade, that would be no laughing matter. In that case, if Winter of that year didn't want to be burned to ashes, what should he do? Of course, he shouldn't give this flame wizard a chance to release his fire magic. Whoosh! Winter of that year stood his ground as he shot out an icy light, Song Yin didn't even notice when Winter of that year had knocked the arrow, nor did he see Winter of that year drawing the bow and releasing it. The icy light simply shot towards him suddenly. The arrow was so abnormally fast that Song Yin, who was still preparing his spell, only saw it right as it was about to hit him. Once again, it hit him squarely in the middle of his forehead. Crash! Song Yin once again fell to the ground, and the flames in his hand instantly disappeared. His HP fell to less than half. Mages usually had very low defense and HP, but Song Yin, who possessed a powerful background and immeasurable resources, had far more HP than most mages. Moreover, Winter of that year's weapon was simply trash. After all, he and 100 miles of ice only stayed around this area, so obtaining this LV-50 copper-grade bow was quite fortunate. Trash weapons could only deal trash damage, but because he hit Song Yin in the middle of his forehead twice and dealt 2 critical hits, Song Yin had less than half of his HP left. At the same time, these 2 attacks were not normal attacks, but the strongest single-target attack of second profession upgrades, crippling feather arrows. If it was just once, Song Yin could have dismissed it as luck. However, being shot in the middle of his forehead twice in a row would require a terrifying amount of luck. After once again falling to the ground, Song Yin was so furious that he felt as if his internal organs were going to explode. He roared out as he got up, when yet another arrow flew towards him. As he got up, it appeared as if he was rising to meet the arrow. The icy light once again shot into Song Yin's forehead, causing his half-risen body to once again fall back down. "Go screw yourself! You dared to call my handsome self an idiot. If you can stand up before you die today, I'll change my surname to yours." Winter of that year raised the bow that Song Yin considered trash high into the air, as he angrily yelled out, "How low is your IQ?" Winter of that year followed through with his words. The 4th shot once again hit the middle of Song Yin's forehead, causing him to lose his balance. "Arg!" Song Yin roared out in anger as he cursed, while trying to get back up. "You goddamn piece of trash!" Whoosh! Another arrow flew over, accurately hitting him in the middle of his forehead and causing Song Yin, who had nearly stood up again, to fall back down. "The person who's repeatedly falling down has the nerve to call someone else a piece of trash? Why don't you take a piss and take a look at yourself? Ha ha ha!" Winter of that year raised his bow as he laughed with glee. This time, Song Yin tried something else. He quickly turned around and stood up with his back towards Winter of that year, covering the back of his head with his hands as he did so. However, while he was doing this, Winter of that year rushed up and kicked his bottom, causing him to fall flat on his face. "Why are you raising your butt so high in the air? Goddamn! Are you a gay prostitute or something? I'll have you know I'm a straight guy who only likes pretty ladies. Piss the hell off! Take another arrow." Winter of that year's ability to insult was unparalleled, and his cursing almost caused Song Yin to have a heart attack. However, he no longer had any chance to counterattack, and even his roars of anger were cut off. Winter of that year continuously shot normal arrows at him, and no matter how Song Yin tried to sidestep or roll around, every arrow would find the middle of his forehead, causing him to repeatedly fall to the ground. This was so for every single one of the 10 or so arrows. These 10 or so arrows made publicly acknowledged strongest mage, and the leader of the Yin Huang Alliance's Mage Alliance, looked like a clown as he repeatedly fell over. All Song Yin could do was drink advanced potions over and over to recover his HP. He didn't want to die. How could the Flame Emperor die to a fameless player in such a pitiful manner? However, by now, even if he was a stupid pig, he could see that this was no simple person, but a complete monster. No! He was clearly inhuman. More than 10 arrows had all hit him in the forehead without fail. With a human's eyesight and control, this was simply impossible. The only explanation was that this person was a mental esper, and an incredibly powerful esper at that. However, this was no longer important. Song Yan's mind was completely overcome by the humiliation and rage he felt. Before today, only Ling Tian had made him feel so humiliated. However, Ling Tian's strength was absolute. Even the Sword Emperor had been defeated by him, and he had turned the entire East Ocean continent upside down by himself. As such, it wasn't too embarrassing that he was insta-killed by Ling Tian. However, what he experienced today was hundreds of times more embarrassing. After being knocked over again, he gnashed his teeth and hollered, "Give out your name, if you dare!" After first starting their guard duty here, winter of that year and 100 miles of ice had concealed their names to avoid any trouble. As such, Song Yan had no idea who he was. Winter of that year smirked, as he said in a serious tone, "You want to know this handsome self's name? All right. My given name is Deer. Yes, I know it's strange. My middle name is Far, and my surname is Der. Got it? Deer. Far. Der." Song Yan repeated. Winter of that year grinned. Good son. Say it a few more times. I'll kill you. Ah, you unfilial son. As your father, I have no idea what went wrong with you, but you dare attempt to commit patricide? And you dare to be a gay prostitute as well? You think I can accept that? There's no use in keeping a son like you, so your elder will get rid of you now. Take some more arrows. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A second profession upgrade skill, Triple Rapid Star, shot out, stopping Song Yan from saying whatever he was trying to say. A crippling feather arrow followed, once again hitting Song Yan in the forehead as he fell, emptying out his HP bar. Song Yan finally died and fell to the ground, unable to curse back. Despite having incredibly high HP and winter of that year using a trash weapon, as well as consuming so many advanced potions to buy more time, he had still died. In the end, all he had done by using those potions was prolong the humiliation he had suffered. Watching Song Yan's corpse disappear, Winter of that year shrugged as he put away his weapon and muttered to himself. That flame wizard looked pretty strong and was probably a fire esper. It's a pity that his mouth was so foul, calling me a piece of trash and an idiot. Bleh. You want to compete with my handsome self in insulting? Heh. From the flames Song Yan used, Winter of that year was able to guess that he was a powerful flame wizard, but he didn't know that he was the famous Flame Emperor. If he had known this, he would have paraded this around all day. After dealing with the intruder, Winter of that year once again comfortably laid down on the grass and closed his eyes. Azure Dragon City. Currently, the Forgotten City was not completely opened, as only players who were higher than LV50 had the right to enter. As such, it was not possible to set it as a revival point. When more than 40% of players in the region completed their second profession upgrade, the city would be completely opened. Thus, Song Yan revived in the Azure Dragon City. This was the second time Song Yan had died in the Mystic Moon world. The first time was because of Ling Chen, and everyone knew that he had not died a dishonorable death. However, this time, he, the Flame Emperor, was killed by a fameless person like this. He simply couldn't stand this humiliation. You bastard! I'll kill you! Kill you! Kill your whole family! Wipe out your 18 generations of ancestors! The instant Song Yan appeared at the revival point, he started cursing out loud, causing all the other players to run away in fear. Everyone knew that the Flame Emperor had a terrible temper, and being dragged into his anger was no laughing matter. I want 100 people who have done their second profession upgrade to come to the Azure Dragon City revival point. Right now! After roaring into his communication device, Song Yan's body flashed and disappeared, reappearing at the town nearest to where he had been before. When venturing through dangerous regions, players would only buy potions and other important consumables, as opposed to teleport scrolls. This was because there were countless towns and villages across the Forgotten Continent. It was impossible for one's bag to contain a teleport scroll from every place they passed by. However, luckily Song Yin had bought a teleport scroll from that town. The town was less than 20 kilometers from where he was humiliated by winter of that year. If he rode on a mount, it would take him less than half an hour to arrive. However, in order to get there, one had to pass through a monster territory filled with LV-70 to LV-80 monsters, which wasn't something ordinary players could pass through. After buying more than 100 teleport scrolls, Song Yin returned to the Azure Dragon City, where a team from the Yin Huang Alliance was waiting for him. There were exactly 100 of them, and all of them were above LV-50. Song Yin gave out the teleport scrolls as he yelled, "Come with me!" As the crowd shattered their teleport scrolls, they all appeared in the town that Song Yin had been earlier. "Flame Emperor, where are we?" The leader of the 100-man team looked around as he cautiously asked. "There's a territory filled with LV-70 to LV-80 monsters. If you don't want to die, follow me carefully." Half an hour later, Winter of that year, who had taken a short nap, opened his eyes and stretched out before sitting up. He tried to call 100 Miles of Ice to ask how his profession upgrade quest was going, but received a notification that he was unable to connect. Evidently, 100 Miles of Ice was still within the special quest's amp. Winter of that year could only unhappily grumble and prepare to go over to the new city to have a look. Just as he took 2 steps, his ears twitched. After standing silently for a moment, he suddenly jumped up as he exclaimed, "Holy fudge! 101 people!" Despite the people being quite far away, Winter of that year could detect exactly how many of them there were. This was simply astounding. He turned towards the direction the sounds were coming from. Very soon, a large crowd of people appeared, and the person at the front was evidently that flame wizard who he had humiliated. Winter of that year instantly realized that this guy had brought his gang to deal with him. There's a monster territory about 10 or so kilometers wide filled with LV-70 to LV-80 monsters between this place and the nearest town, and yet so many people arrived here alive. What's going on? Winter of that year stared with wide eyes. It was impossible for these people to pass through that dangerous territory by themselves. However, Song Yin had discovered a hidden path, which meant that they only needed to pass through a few kilometers of monster territory. By going along the hidden path, Song Yin had brought his entire party here. This is my road, and these are all my trees. If you want to get past, go screw yourself." Winter of that year jumped out from behind a rock as he spread his legs apart, put his hands on his hips, and raised his head, facing the 101 intruders. There was no fear in his eyes, as if he didn't put these 101 people, who were around the same level as him, in his eyes at all. As soon as he appeared, a wave of killing intent swept towards him. Song Yin had never wanted to destroy a person so much before. He savagely gazed at Winter of that year as the scenes of him being humiliated flashed in his mind, causing him to tremble with anger. "You piece of trash! You're going to discover the consequences of angering me!" Song Yin roared. "AI, you actually came back!" Winter of that year gave a long sigh, then looked at Song Yin with a strange expression as his gaze became serious. "There's a very serious question that I want to ask you. I hope you'll take this question seriously. Speak. How low is your IQ? How long is your IQ?" Winter of that year roared with an expression of pain. Song Yin immediately exploded as he shrieked, "Screw your ancestors! Attack! Kill him! Reduce him to scraps and feed him to the dogs!" Fire espers naturally had a fiery temperament, as well as an explosive personality. Song Yin was also cruel and arrogant, as well, adding on his strength and position within the Yin-Huang alliance. No one dared to offend him. This was because San Yin became angry extremely easily, and the wrath of his fury was something that could not be looked down upon. Winter of that year's words caused the people with San Yin to feel incredibly anxious. They had never seen anyone who dared to talk to the Flame Emperor like that. When the Flame Emperor became enraged, not only did he vent out his anger in the virtual world, but often tracked down the person in the real world to make them disappear forever. To them, this person standing in front of them was as good as dead. As San Yin roared out, the 5 people at the front teleported forwards and equipped their staffs, shooting various spells towards Winter of that year. San Yin was the leader of the Yin-Huang Alliance's Mage Alliance and had brought 100 wizards, who had all completed their second profession upgrade. To them, 5 wizards was definitely enough. No, it was already overkill. The instant they teleported, Winter of that year's eyes focused, and by the time they cast their spells, he had somehow shifted back by 3 body spaces. It was as if he had been dragged backwards by something. The 5 wizards' first round of attacks all missed, and Winter of that year took out the weapon that San Yin had looked down on before. He gazed at San Yin, whose face was turning purple from anger, as he said in a serious manner, "Tell me, just how low is your IQ?" San Yin almost coughed up a mouthful of blood. The 5 wizards closed in on Winter of that year, and shifted to positions where they could surround him and attack him at an effective distance. Water, fire, wind, lightning, and earth attacks started to blast towards Winter of that year. Winter of that year stopped retreating, and instead moved around within a confined area. He jumped, sidestepped, and leaned back, continuously dodging the 5 wizards' attacks without a single one of them hitting him. Winter of that year didn't attack as he continued to stare at San Yin, crying out as if he was painfully talking to his own son. "How low is your IQ? Tell me! How low is your IQ? Just how low is your IQ?" He had just finished humiliating this guy, and yet San Yin immediately ran back. Winter of that year was sure there must be something wrong with his brain. "Arg!" San Yin was so furious that he felt as if all of his veins and arteries were going to explode. He stepped forward and raised his hands, as a gigantic flame started to burn around his body. Evidently, he was casting the strongest spell available to flame wizards right after their second profession upgrade, Devouring Firestorm. Once cast, the 20 meters in front of him would become a sea of flames, dealing incredible damage. "Go die! Die!" The flames of fury within San Yin made him feel like exploding, and he wished he could completely annihilate Winter of that year with this devouring firestorm, so that not even his bones would be left. The instant that the flame started burning, Winter of that year, who hadn't attacked this whole time, raised his hands so fast that they were just a blur. In the next instant, an incomprehensibly fast, icy light shot out. San Yin, who was channeling the spell, had long been prepared for this. He instantly teleported to his right. The instant he teleported, he saw Winter of that year's arrow streak past where he had been, as he coldly laughed. This time, that arrow definitely wouldn't hit him. Because of that, his devouring firestorm would be able to burn Winter of that year to crisp. The sound of the air being torn rang out as San Yin, who had teleported 5 meters away, suddenly stopped in his tracks as a gigantic impact slammed into his forehead. Bang! The arrow hit San Yin right in the middle of his forehead without fault, causing him to fall to the ground. The devouring firestorm, which had finished channeling and was about to be fired, was cancelled. San Yin's eyes widened as he sat on the ground with a terrifying thought surfacing in his mind. His arrows can turn. "How low is your IQ?" Winter of that year said seriously to San Yin, who had fallen to the ground. "How low is your IQ? Tell me, just how low is your IQ? How low is your IQ?" This was the first time Song Yin believed that it was possible to be angered to death. By now, Song Yin's eyes were purple, and his face was incredibly dark, as his entire body trembled. He could even feel the blood rising to his throat, which he forced back down. The memories of being knocked down more than 10 times took away his courage to stand back up. He pointed at Winter of that year, who was still being attacked by the 5 wizards as he shrieked, "Are you all dead? Hurry up and kill him!" AI. Winter of that year sighed and shook his head. "Just tell me how low your IQ is." Song Yan's vision darkened as he fell to the ground. He had been angered to the point of unconsciousness. The other wizards, who were staring dumbfounded, felt as if they had been woken up from a dream. At the same time, they realized just how terrifying this archer wearing trash equipment was. Instantly, they stopped caring about the shame of bullying this archer with superior numbers, and all charged towards him. The might of 100 wizards, who had completed their second profession upgrade, gave Winter of that year a big fright. Without even thinking about it, he started running. What a joke! Dealing with 5 or 6 was like playing around, but dealing with so many at once, that was playing with his life. Winter of that year wasn't so stupid as to run in the direction of the new city. Instead, he ran towards the west with a crowd of wizards chasing behind him. After their second profession upgrade, archers unlocked Gale Steps, which greatly increased their movement abilities. Mages had average movement speed, but had the ability to teleport, which was boosted after their second profession upgrade. As such, after their second profession upgrades, mages and archers' movement abilities were about the same. In this kind of situation, equipment was key. Winter of that year had a set of copper equipment. If it was in the early stages of the game, copper equipment was considered quite good. However, at this stage of the game, copper-grade equipment was already mid to low quality. On the other hand, the 100 wizards that Song Yin brought with him were all experts from the Yin-Huang Alliance, and all had excellent equipment. Most of them had full sets of silver-grade equipment, and some even had gold-grade equipment. Winter of that year completely lost out in terms of equipment. However, this wasn't his fault. After all, he had stood guard here for a long time, and there were only normal monsters to farm. It was incredibly difficult to find LV-50 silver-grade equipment here. As for even higher grades, he didn't even need to consider those. Winter of that year's equipment caused the wizards to all sneer at him. However, seeing his movement speed, they were completely dumbfounded. He was faster than a rabbit. Not only were they unable to catch up, in less than 20 seconds, he had increased the gap between them by more than 20 meters. Moreover, this distance was continuously increasing. What's more, he occasionally glanced behind him, looking as if he wasn't giving it his all. What was going on? Even if he was a marksman who had completed his second profession upgrade, he shouldn't be able to run so quickly. Could it be that he had some sort of superb equipment or crystal that greatly increased his movement speed? After increasing the distance between them, Winter of that year grinned evilly. He lifted his rattan-wood bow as he suddenly turned around while continuing to run, and 6 arrows flew out. The archer's second profession upgrade skill, machine gun arrows, could shoot 9 arrows at most. Winter of that year's machine gun arrows was currently only LV3, which allowed him to shoot out 6 arrows. Machine gun arrows was most effective against crowds, and most archers used it to cover a large area. Controlling all 6 arrows was almost impossible. However, this evidently didn't apply to Winter of that year. Bang! 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 6 collision sounds rang out as all 6 arrows found their targets, hitting them in the middle of their foreheads. The 6 wizards who were hit all fell to the ground. This scene caused all of the other wizards to stare, completely flabbergasted, with their mouths wide open. The shock on their faces was as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. Winter of that year didn't stop, and in the next instant, he shot out an exploding arrow, which covered 3 of the mages in its blast range and killed them simultaneously. These wizards had far less HP than Song Yin, and after being hit with a critical hit by the exploding arrow, their HP bars were immediately cleared out. Archers had a far longer range than mages, and Winter of that year maintained a distance where he could attack them, but they could not attack him. After attacking twice, the mages had caught up with him to the point that they could finally begin to retaliate. Seeing this, Winter of that year didn't waste any time and started concentrating on running again, pulling away from them. A dark world. Everything was dark, and there was no light, or sound, or anything else. Ling Chen stood completely shocked within the dark world. No matter if it was in front, behind, above, or below, it was completely dark. Ling Chen stretched out his hands, but found that he could not see them. He closed his eyes and reopened them, but found that the situation was still the same. Where was this? What sort of place was this? After the lunar scourge had touched that mysterious door, he had been pulled in by a mysterious suction force. This seemed to be the world behind the mysterious door. However, there was no door behind him.
Xiao, do you know where we are?
Ling Chen asked.
Xiao?
There was no reply. Xiao seemed to think that they were still at the extremely cold summit of the Godchild Peak, and was still sealed away.
Shall we come out?
Ling Chen had no ability to find his way around in this sort of completely dark environment. Perhaps Xiao Hui could scout out a path. However, there was no reply.
Xiao Hui, Lunaire,
Snow Cherry. There was still no reply from any of them. Ling Chen remained silent. He felt that he had been sent to a dark world, which was completely disconnected from the rest of the world. Apart from him and the darkness, there was nothing else. A faint voice Ling Chen started to walk forward. The ground under his feet was cold, hard and smooth, and definitely wasn't plain soil. It felt almost as if he was walking on a slippery piece of glass.
Where is this?
Ling Chen yelled towards the area in front of him. However, even after waiting for a while, he heard no echo. Not only was it dark, it was an incredibly vast area. Xiao hadn't responded, and Xiao Hui was unable to be summoned. Apart from himself and the darkness, there were no other creatures, living or dead. Since he could come in, he could get out. However, he couldn't find where the exit was. After a few minutes of walking, Ling Chen stopped. He couldn't tell where he was going in this jet-black world, and even if he walked for a year, he might not achieve anything. He tried to call Xiao and Xiao Hui a few more times, but there was still no response. If there was a special restriction on the space, such as being unable to summon pets, Ling Chen wouldn't have been very surprised. However, Xiao resided in the lunar scourge, and they could communicate telepathically. There was nothing that could restrict such a thing. Thus, the only explanation was that Xiao still believed they were on the incredibly cold Godchild Peak, and was still sealed off, so she was unable to hear Ling Chen's voice. Thinking to there, Ling Chen calmed down and decided to log off. With the current situation, even if he stayed here, he wouldn't be able to accomplish anything. The best choice was to log off and wait for Xiao to unseal herself, so that he could ask her what sort of place this was and how to get out. With Xiao's knowledge, perhaps she would have a solution. Even if she didn't know, at least he could bounce ideas off of her. However, after giving the command to log off, everything remained exactly the same, with no change at all. There wasn't even a system announcement telling him that he couldn't log off, or providing a reason. This left Ling Chen greatly dismayed. He once again tried to log off, then tried another 5 or 6 times in succession. In response, there was only silence and darkness. Ling Chen gave up. He took in a deep breath and opened his eyes wide, trying to take a look at this strange world. A completely dark world, with no sound at all. He couldn't summon pets. He couldn't talk to Xiao. Although it was strange, it was something he could accept. But not being able to log off, that was incredibly terrifying. If he couldn't summon Xiao or talk to Xiao, and he couldn't log off or find the exit, the result was that he would be trapped in here until he died. It seemed that not only could curiosity kill the cat, it could also kill humans. Ling Chen once again calmed himself down and avoided recklessly advancing anymore. After thinking for a while, he remembered something. He lifted up his right hand as he said in a soft voice,
"New moon! Come out!"
Hearing this command from Ling Chen, a silver light shot out from the lunar scourge. This light should have been incredibly faint and weak, but in this pitch-black space, it seemed intensely bright. The silver light rushed into the air, becoming an eye-catching new moon. With the new moon hanging in the air, the space Ling Chen was in became dyed by the flawless moonlight. The new moon's light wasn't very strong, but it was enough to enable Ling Chen to see the world he was in. What he saw was a boundless region of nothing, and further on, even more darkness. That's right, there was nothing here, not even a speck of dust. Ling Chen looked down and took in a breath of cold air. There was nothing under his feet either. He could feel himself standing on something solid, but under the moonlight he saw that in fact there was simply nothing there. It seemed as if he was standing in midair within this dark space. The light from the lunar scourge did not help Ling Chen answer any of his questions, and instead confused him even more. What was this place? Suddenly, the light from above flickered, causing Ling Chen to raise his head in shock. The new moon was released from the lunar scourge's power, so it should continuously give off a steady light for as long as Ling Chen wished it. It shouldn't be able to flicker, nor was there anything in this space that could block out the light. That flickering was extremely strange. However, the unusual flickering did not stop. As Ling Chen looked up, the new moon in the air continued to fluctuate. At first, it would only flicker once every few breaths of time, but it became more and more frequent, until it flickered off and on about once every second. Seeing the new moon like this seemed like a giant firefly. The new moon had never done anything like this before. Ling Chen looked up towards the new moon's changes, and his frown became deeper and deeper. He was certain that this strange reaction was related to this space. That was because after arriving in this place, almost nothing had been normal. After the new moon flickered for another half a minute, it finally stopped, and then it went out completely. The space was once again filled with darkness. Under normal circumstances, unless Ling Chen put it away, the new moon should have lasted for at least 10 minutes. Just as Ling Chen was feeling exceedingly confused, the lunar scourge suddenly lit up with a faint silver moonlight. At the same time, it began flying forward, dragging Ling Chen with it. Ling Chen subconsciously resisted, but found that he couldn't resist whatever was attracting the lunar scourge, and was forcefully brought along with it.
"Are you here to save me?"
Ling Chen raised his head in shock, and yelled while he was dragged along by the lunar scourge.
Who? Who is it? Who's speaking?
However, after waiting for a while, he received no reply.
Who is it? Is anyone here? Answer me immediately.
Ling Chen loudly called out. There was still no reply. He had definitely heard a voice. It was an incredibly small and weak voice, and it wasn't transmitted to his mind, but to his heart. After yelling for a while, the voice did not sound out again. However, he was certain that he had not imagined that voice. As the profession with the longest range, archers were undeniably the profession that was most suitable for kiting and leading enemies around. If one had enough movement speed, as well as good judgment and agility, an excellent archer could kite a powerful boss to death without taking any damage at all. Of course, it would take them a long time. Winter of that year was a professional at kiting. However, this kite was quite large. He was leading around a crowd of 100 people. Winter of that year used his inhuman movement speed to increase the gap between them, then turned and ran, after attacking. In just a few exchanges, he had killed more than 10 of the mages from the Yin Huang Alliance, while they had yet to even injure a hair on his head. They could only scream in anger as they chased after him, wishing that they could catch up and destroy him.
If you're a man, don't run. If you're a man, don't run. You turtle. If you're a man, stop running and fight properly with us. Good joke. There's 100 of you and one of me, and yet you want me to fight properly with you. Do you think my head was crushed by a pig's ass or something? Go screw yourself. Fudge, you dare to act so disrespectfully to your elder, you beast? Email protected, #$%.
A crowd of mages ran after Winter of that year, eating his dust. There were less and less people on their side, while they hadn't hit him even once. After 20 people died, they finally became a bit smarter and stopped chasing him. With Winter of that year's speed, they wouldn't be able to catch up to him even if they chased him for 100 years. Instead, they would only be slowly picked off by him. Perhaps the best thing to do was to call other members from the guild to block him off from the front, then bombard him. However, this was their time coming here, so how could there be anyone else from the guild here? Seeing them stop, Winter of that year also stopped and raised his bow to shoot. He stopped in the perfect spot, where he was able to hit the mages, but they were unable to hit him, and could only endure the beating.
Fudge! Retreat!
As the saying went, a wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. If they continued to give chase, they would only suffer more casualties without being able to deal with this archer. The leader raised and waved his hand, ordering the mages to retreat. Winter of that year stared as he hollered,
"Don't run! Your elder hasn't played enough yet."
The situation was instantly reversed and became the mages running away, with Winter of that year chasing after them. However, there was a major difference. They couldn't attack him while he was running away, but he could attack them, and now he was leisurely following behind them, attacking as he wished. When he was the one being chased, he was only able to attack once or twice after a period of running away. Now, he attacked much more frequently while giving chase. In just a short while, he had almost decimated the entire group of mages. The Yin Huang Alliance players, who were all high-level elites, were being chased around by an archer with trash equipment. Not only did retreating not reduce their casualties, but instead made them die off even faster. The leader was so depressed that he felt as if his internal organs were going to explode, so he stopped in his tracks, screaming,
"The hell are we running for? Hurry up and destroy this brat!"
The escaping mages all turned around and furiously roared, as they rushed towards Winter of that year. Their vicious manner made it seem as if they wanted to skin him alive. Winter of that year, who was having fun shooting, immediately turned and ran. Winter of that year's battle plan was very simple. You want to chase me? I'll run. You can't catch up to me, so you won't be able to hit me, while I'll be able to hit you. If you want to chase after me, then you'll take a beating. You don't want to chase anymore? I'll just stand here and hit you, while you still can't hit me. You want to run? I'll chase after you and attack you. You think you can evade my handsome self's attacks with your speed? If they chased after him, they would be hit. If they didn't chase, they would be hit. If they ran, they would be hit. Just like this, the Yin Huang Alliance's powerful group of mages was tormented to the point that they wished they could die.